Hey guys, welcome back to Spooky Tuesday, a weekly podcast where we're breaking down all of our favorite slashers, thrillers, monster movies, and black comedies on the new scariest day of the week. I'm Cindy Thompson.
I'm Monica Height.
And I'm Chelsea Duh.
And oh boy, we're
Oh
about to
boy.
get into it, okay? It's a
Into
beautiful
it.
time. It's a beautiful time. Am I using the word confluence right now? A confluence of two beautiful things coming
That sounds
together. What
right.
is I think that's right.
Yeah,
It sounds
A
right. I
coming
don't know what it means,
together.
but I like it.
I
It's
think.
a confluence. Many people know about that term. But what I'm getting at is that right now it is werewolf
Junction of two
versus
rivers.
vampire. Huh? What?
It means junction of two rivers. So I think,
Yeah, bitch. It's a
especially
fucking
rivers of
junction.
approximately equal width. And I would say
It's a
this one,
confluence.
our event,
Yeah,
equally
there are
important.
two spookies. There are two rivers. One of the rivers
There are
is
two
werewolf
rivers that live
versus
inside you.
vampire seasonal depression event, and the other river is Monster Funker February, and
Yep.
they are confluencing together today. Wow, we're so intellectual. As we
so
dive
smart.
into the newest, actually the number one movie on IMDb right now, in case you wanted to know, they do a list, and this is the number one, and it's on the tip of everyone's tongue. What are they saying? What are they thinking? They're saying Nosferatu. Did that come through on the? Sometimes
Yeah.
when I whisper,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
doesn't
yeah.
work on the mic.
Good whisper.
Okay, great. We're doing Nosferatu 2024, and
Yay!
boy, oh boy. Let me start off by saying this is a great 7 o'clock in the morning movie.
It really is.
No, it is.
actually.
I
It's
also
a
watched it
really
again this
good one.
morning.
I watched
It's a
it early
beautiful.
this morning.
I actually have never watched it at night. Monica and I went to a midday showing when we went on Christmas Day. And then when I was watching it earlier in this week, it was also midday. And I gotta be honest, both of those were kind of during nap time. I was getting real sleepy. The morning when you're
no.
bright and you're fresh, but it's like the early dawn hours before the strong sun has really overtaken the sky. That's kind of the move.
It's kind of the move. And also, as someone who has watched it in the nighttime, I would say actually watched is a vague term to be used for this because I watched it at night and I slept through, I would say, 77% of the film. But honestly, kind of recommend doing that
It's a
for one of
weirdly
your
good
views.
sleep movie.
It's a really
Yeah.
good, because the whole thing is like a nightmare, and that's kind of like a huge theme throughout the film
And
is
it's
like her
dark.
prolific nightmares, and so having the movie be like my own nightmare was very interesting and tortured, and it was really scary because I kept waking up when whenever Count Orlok talked. He was like, "Rrr," and I was like, oh, okay, I'm here, and I'm immediately horny.
The second time I watched this was at night, and I was blitzed on a movie enjoying supplement.
Same.
And
Also,
I was like
yeah.
there for like the beginning, and then I was kind of like out of it. But every time I came back was for the like a nudity scene, and that's like the only time my brain. It was like right
Ooh.
It's
before
important.
a nudity scene, and I was like, oh, I just
That's
have a
so
sixth
important.
sense for this. And then I was
my God.
Gotta
immediately
see
Straight
like
up.
the full
blacked
dong.
back out. I was like, la 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 la. But I do have
Wow.
a very important question for y'all.
Uh-huh.
Are y'all ready? Are y'all ready to bounce on it crazy style?
Crazy
Crazy
style.
style.
The memes for this movie have been absolutely out of control.
It's been so
They've been
good.
so good.
I feel so alive. The horror genre feels so alive. Like, oh my God. This movie got fucking noms for Oscars as well, not just The Substance, baby. This one got it too, not movie of the year, which I think is wrong because I
A
love
sham.
this movie
It
so
should have
much, and
been.
it's such a stunning movie. I mean, just it's Robert Eggers, I think he's my favorite director. I really do. I think he's my favorite
Take that,
director.
M.
He
Night
is
Shyamalan.
okay. Well, M. Night,
She's like, oh no, I
he
didn't
has
even
his
think of
own
that.
crazy style. I'm not gonna. He has his own crazy style that isn't always good. But Robert Eggers only has hits so far. Knock on wood. I wish him only bops into eternity. But he is the fucking king, the modern king of folk horror. Like he really is. Like he brings that shit every single one of his movies has been about folk mythology and horror and that sort of a thing. And he is so well researched when he does these movies. So this was really fun just learning about this movie, doing the research for it. I didn't realize how obsessed with Nosferatu Robert Eggers has been since he is
Yeah.
fucking
Yeah.
8 or 9 years old. Like crazy.
Crazy
What a
style.
fucking crazy style.
Crazy style.
How many times are we gonna say that? That might
As many times as it's
early
called
standout
for.
for title of the
Right.
episode. But yeah, I just think it's so cool that this was like his dream movie to make, and he fucking did it, and he slayed it so hard so like pat on the back for Mr. Eggers. Oh wait, I didn't do the IMDb logline. Let me just do that really quickly. Sorry.
Okay.
Before we go crazy. A gothic tale of obsession between a haunted young woman and the terrifying vampire infatuated with her, causing untold horror in its wake. I like it. It's beautiful.
Dun dun dun.
I just feel so lucky to be alive at the same time that Guillermo del Toro and Robert Eggers are making movies, honestly.
Agreed. It's really nice.
It feels like a great time to be alive. And God, I needed another Crimson Peak, so thanks so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Robert
Does
Eggers.
make me want to do a Crimson Peak Nosferatu double feature somewhere.
Yes. Oh my
Yeah,
God.
I mean, I can see that for sure.
Catch me on Valentine's Day making Taylor do Nosferatu Crimson Peak because he's never seen Crimson Peak.
Well,
Oh,
I
next time, I
know.
guess.
well, I just love these like gothic romance horror, that genre, and I haven't watched like that much of it, but I love the like longing for a love that is wrong and taboo. Like that is such a huge theme in this movie too. Ugh, it's so sexy, but it's wrong, and it goes so well with all the things we've been learning about it during Werewolf versus Vampire seasonal depression event, and how I feel about werewolves now, you know.
I will say I love all the vampire movies that we've done have all been like stylistically different kinds of vampires.
Yes.
Right? Like
yes.
we did
Like Edward Cullen.
beautiful sparkly vampire, emo boy vampire. And then like the 30 Days of Night are like weird.
Shark.
Right? Like
Shark
they're like
Mhm.
and this one he's very much like original folklore vampire, which was just reanimated rotted corpse.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
really liked all of his like interview quotes about that. I read a bunch
Yeah.
of articles that I linked, but they're all pretty short, so I mean, easy to flip through them. But there are a bunch of quotes from him where he really was like, I didn't want like the seductive, sexy vampire that we have seen most frequently in pop culture.
Yeah.
Like he really wanted, he had some interesting quotes where he was like, I do think like Count Orlok was like a sexy guy when he was alive, and I wanted
That's
that
why
to
they
come
cast
through.
Bill Skarsgård.
That's why they cast Bill
Okay,
Skarsgård, because they're like, we want you to know it's Bill Skarsgård under there. Although I have something to circle back to with that in a second that I told Monica when we were watching, but that it was like I wanted him to have like these beautiful cheekbones and like this gorgeous mustache. And all of these things that like would have made him like really stand out and be like a noble to have your eyes on when he was alive, but he's not alive. And he hasn't even been like what we see him as now for a long time because it was like Ellen that woke him from his slumber. So he really, really has been
Yeah.
like a desiccated corpse for like hundreds of years.
Okay, but he still is really sexy. So
No, I
he like
know.
failed in trying to make an unsexy vampire because like
Well, he was still nasty.
He just wanted not traditionally sexy.
Well,
What I
yeah.
was gonna
Sorry, just really quick on that same theme. Like the other part of that same quote was that he was like, vampires haven't been scary for fucking years. Like they sparkle now, you know what I mean? And so he's like, I'm trying to make them scary again. And like, yes, he is very sexy, but he is horrifying. And I think it's really interesting. And I have come to terms with the mustache now, and I'm a fan of the mustache, but it was a journey to get there. I first watched, like everyone else, I was shocked. And Chelsea, also, is this what you were going to say?
Well, I was really shocked because and I don't know exactly why I thought this, but I thought that Willem Dafoe was playing Nosferatu.
I was
And
like,
you know,
what?
Eileen, when they showed the outline of his dong, I thought about Willem Dafoe and how he wanted to get his dong out for Robert Eggers in The Lighthouse, but wasn't allowed because his dong is too big. And I was like, wow,
Wow.
he loves to show dong. Like I leaned over to Monica and said that, and I guess it didn't register for her why I said that because why would it? Um, but then later when they were going to meet Doctor, she was like, "Oh, I think that's gonna be Willem Dafoe," and I was like, "What do you mean that's gonna be Willem Dafoe? Like anybody could have been under those prosthetics doing crazy voice. You know what I mean?
Well, I
Who's to
knew
know?
it
It's
was
Bill
Bill Skarsgård.
I didn't. I guess I didn't. I thought it was Willem Dafoe.
I
Kind of
just love,
disappointing.
dude. Okay, no, because Willem Dafoe was so perfect in his character. He was so, and that was
He
such a
is, but imagine
beautiful
Willem
like
Dafoe
mid movie
Nosferatu.
I
vibe
would
switch.
also be disappointed if I didn't see
If you thought it
Willem
was gonna be
Dafoe's
Willem
dog
Dafoe,
out
come
there. He
on.
would
Well, you
have
didn't
used
see
a prosthetic.
Yeah, you didn't see Bill Skarsgård's either, because that was a prosthetic
Yeah,
penis.
but Willem
Yeah, but if
wouldn't
it
have
was
used a
Willem Dafoe, they would have
prosthetic.
used his real dog because it would have been appropriately scary for this role.
Yeah, it would have
Did
been
they use
a
a
dog.
prosthetic because he needed to be uncut?
Oh, I
I
don't know.
think
I
that's
don't
it.
know. Maybe he
I
also
think
has
that
no pubes, which I saw a TikTok about where somebody was trying to have a little fun with the internal logic of that I'd love to discuss later on,
well, he's losing his hair as a corpse. He
but
doesn't have
not
that
his
much hair on top of his
mustache.
head either. Well, that's have you seen men who go bald?
That's true.
Their hair goes
My
bald and
other
their
thought
face still
was,
has hair.
He should have
you know,
had a big bush. I'm just saying, but
he be
Would have
fucking
it
loved
would.
so
that.
maybe it frictioned all off, but he doesn't eat pussy, so his mustache stayed. That's one of my
Maybe
theories.
Bill
True.
Skarsgård was like, I already have too much going on, and so if you put a merkin on me too with this makeup prosthetics work, I can't handle it. That was the
It's
last.
already hard enough for my dick to breathe through the prosthetic dick. If you put a bush on there, I'm just smothered.
He was literally in 62 prosthetic pieces for that,
That's
for
so
the full
wild.
body look.
Do
62.
you think he
And it
had
took
to
6
refrain
people
from
to
doing
put them on.
squats for 2 years to get these skinny little legs?
He had normal legs in the part where he stands up and shows his dick. He just
Yeah,
it has
he-
the little
He just
skinny
wasted away
legs
by the
because
end.
he like vomited out his whole lifeblood. But anyway, that's
well,
the end
and
of the movie.
also the and we're jumping to the point. The final scene where he has skinny little legs
Uh-huh.
is like a puppet. It's like not really Bill Skarsgård.
No, I think it's him. I think that's what he looks like. I think he went on a really extreme diet. You know how actors love to do really extreme
It's
diet for
not-
their role so they can be taken
That's
seriously
Christian
as
Bale.
an actor.
Bill Skarsgård won't put his life on the line for his art like that. He won't.
I
put
guess
his
he's
health
just
on
not
the
serious
line.
about it.
No, he's
We're
so-
starting that rumor right now.
No. Wait, say the other thing that you said during the movie too about the mustache, because I don't want to steal your punchline.
Well, I
You
don't
said-
remember what it was, so you can say it if you
well,
want.
I was wanting you to toot your own horn because so many people have been making this joke, but Chelsea authentically made this joke in the film before any of the memes were out. But she was like, the mustache kind of reminds me of Jim Carrey from Sonic the Hedgehog. And then I saw so many memes about that, and I was like, Chelsea had that thought organically herself.
What
Chelsea
can
is a
I say?
pioneer.
I was
What
mad
can
at you
I
though for
say?
saying that because I was like, could you I've tried to accept the mustache, and now I'm thinking about Jim Carrey.
And now I'm leaning over and going, it's giving Jim Carrey and Sonic.
Okay, but here's the thing. Nosferatu obviously is based off Dracula, right? The whole big story where Nosferatu, we shouldn't have known about it because it was a copyright infringement.
Yeah.
And they were like, you must delete all copies. And people were like, psych, it's cult classic. We're not doing that.
Guess what? Fuck you. Yeah.
And thank God.
Well, because it was like ancient times, not true, but it was like the 30s
The 20s.
when that.
It was the 20s.
Yeah. 20s when it came out. I don't know when the lawsuit happened because it got away with it for a minute. They were like, burn all the copies. I just think that adds to the lore.
And,
like physically burn them.
But like Dracula in the books and the original Dracula has a mustache.
Oh.
Like,
well,
so it's
Bram
true.
Stoker's Dracula
it's true to the source
has
material.
A mustache. Yeah.
Oh yeah, when he's in his like sexy London human form.
Robert Eggers was adamant about the mustache.
He should be. Vlad the Impaler, who Dracula was based off of, had a mustache.
Yeah, well, I mean, he did so much research, just like with The Witch. I feel like this is his like
special interest.
I don't know. It's a special interest. He said in an interview because context. I trained my algorithm for 3 weeks to only show me Nosferatu videos, and so I've seen a lot of little tidbits, but I cannot cite all of them because I've just watched them as I rot for the last month. But anyway, this is what he literally said. He said that he doesn't ever want to do a movie where he has to film someone on a cell phone. Like, he's never going to come to the modern day because the idea of having a movie with a cell phone in it makes him want to die, and he doesn't want to do it. He's like, probably the latest I'll go is 1950s. So he loves historical accuracy and all of that stuff. But like, for example, remember when we talked about The Witch and we talked about the literal devil? Sorry, spoilers for The Witch. Watch The Witch. What the fuck's wrong with you? Watch The Witch.
I think you can spoil The Witch.
Yeah.
But like,
we're gonna have to talk about spoilers for The Witch at some point on this episode.
Yeah, when the Black Phillip turns into the devil, like physically, is the man. He had that whole gorgeous, ornate costuming for the devil.
There's definitely a point in this movie where he's looking at someone, and I was like, "That's basically Black Phillip right there." He loves that look.
Oh yeah, I think I know who you're talking about. But like that guy, you never even get to see that costume. And he put so much effort into that, and the costumer put so much effort into that too. So I think that now he got to do his villain, and it had a big fancy coat too. And finally, we get to fucking see it. So that was awesome.
Yeah. You're gonna love this. I saw somebody talking about his commitment to accuracy and his love for accuracy, and they pointed out that there is a moment when they're at the seaside and you hear a bird call in the background that Nosferatu was gonna be not Nosferatu, Robert Eggers was gonna be pissed because it is a common loon call, which is native to North America, not Germany. And then somebody else was like, no, actually there is this other bird. They've got a loon in Germany as well, but they call it the something diver, whatever. I don't know. I'm not a birder.
It's right up Monica's alley.
I love it.
But I was like, I love
of
this.
Monica's life.
Yeah, the confluence.
I just need I know a bunch of big SAT words, but I don't remember their meaning, but it's in there. And so sometimes I'll just say them and I'll be like, what did I say a thing that's real?
Right. And people were going to use context clues to know what I meant. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that loon thing. And I like heard the call because yes, I am a birder. I'm bringing up every time. But today when I was watching the movie this morning, I was just sitting there and all of a sudden I was like, there it is. I could hear it. It's so good. There are a lot of good bird sounds in this movie. There's a lot, and a lot of good rats too. But yeah, oh my God. I loved the costuming in this too. I watched it'll be linked in the references, but I watched this great interview with the costumer. Oh, what's her name? think it's Linda something.
Yes, I believe so, but I can pull it up and
Linda
because I'm looking at the
Blair?
awards page. Linda Muir, yeah.
Warrior. I was close. That rhymed. Um, Linda Moyer. Moyer? I need to find her page because I need to see more stuff of what she's done. But isn't that what they got nominated for? Costuming?
That's one of the things, yeah.
Yeah.
And she
Okay.
works with him a lot. She worked with him on The Northman. She worked on The Lighthouse.
Oh,
She worked on The Witch.
Have y'all seen The
oh my
Northman?
God. Yes.
No.
I watched it
I made
2 weeks ago.
I made Taylor after Nosferatu. We came back and he's like, I've never seen any of his other movies, and I was like,
And
okay,
you don't like The Witch, so you're not going to start there.
no. And also too, I think
Don't
you have to
remind me.
work up to The Witch, honestly, like, because I think Nosferatu is his most like approachable movie for like the general like consumption public, and then I would go Northman, and then honestly probably The Witch, and then The Lighthouse.
Yeah, I was going to say Lighthouse, maybe
Fair.
Left Bug, and I haven't seen it, so who knows?
Well, it's funny you say that because that's literally verbatim word out of his mouth in an interview. He was like, this is supposed to be, literally, he was like, my most approachable movie. Like, he said it like that. It was so funny. So I think that was
we're
like,
so in sync.
I don't know
Oh
if
my
it was exactly
God,
those words,
you
but
and Robert,
that was
the
Yeah,
confluence of your
Robbie.
minds.
maybe it was accessible is the word
Mm,
that it
yeah.
was, but same thing, same difference. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting too because we're talking about his whole repertoire of films, and they're all fucking bangers. But he tried to do Nosferatu earlier on. It was gonna be his second movie ever, but then he was naive about filmmaking, more naive back then, and then like the demands of the studio didn't match what he wanted to produce, and so it didn't work out. And so he was like, honestly, I'm so glad that it's fallen apart so many times for it to come together now, because I like, this is a movie that I've wanted to do since he was 9, because he saw it for the first time when he was 9 on like a VHS tape, and he was like obsessed with it.
Well, and
saw
wasn't
the OG one, sorry, the
and wasn't
1922.
Bill like attached to play Thomas in his like
I-
first go around, and then like it fell apart, and so nothing happened, and then he was like, hey, do you want to be in this movie again, but this time I want you to play the vampire? And then Harry Styles was originally supposed to play Thomas, and Anya Taylor-Joy was supposed to play Ellen, but both of them, like Harry Styles had a world tour that he
Harry
had
Styles
to
had to
do.
go get hair plugs.
Yeah, exactly. And then Anya Taylor-Joy was doing Mad Max Furiosa.
Mm.
I kind of think
See-
it's for the best that Anya and him didn't do this movie together, because then I think obviously it's not the same as The Witch, but I like that
Well, and
he
she's
was.
also in the Northman too, so like it would have been one of those like
Well,
continuing to
that's what he
use.
does. I love
Yeah.
that. He like, I love when a director has like, he's
A
cute little
cast.
babies.
It's very
Their
Wes
crew.
Anderson of him.
Exactly. And so he does that with now Willem Dafoe. Because Willem Dafoe saw The Witch and loved it so much and like wanted to meet up with Robert Eggers just to tell him how cool he is, and then they became besties, and now he's literally Robert Eggers' muse.
Here's the thing.
Willem
If
Dafoe is in his next 3 movies, by the way, in case you want to know.
But also, what an honor to have Willem Dafoe as your muse. Like, isn't that everybody's dream? Okay.
Yeah.
But speaking of,
I mean,
like,
anybody can write
reusing
poems about Willem
people.
Dafoe.
I think Robert Pattinson would have done a really great job in Aaron Taylor Johnson's role.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say Nosferatu, because didn't you hear his voice doing that heron in that?
Yes. But I like.
Oh yeah,
I liked
wanna
Bill.
see that movie.
But
Yeah.
like, I really think he would have been like a really great. What was his name? Friedrich.
Oh.
Yeah, that
Friedrich.
sounds right.
Like,
The girls are fighting in the
I
background.
did like
singing.
Aaron
They're-
Taylor Johnson in it. His character is super grating and super like pompous. So some of like his performance like read as fake to me a little bit. But I think that like he's like a fucking arrogant mofo, you know? And so I think that he's just kind of like a fake guy. Like
no, I think he did a great job.
authentically
But
loves his family so much, but he's like, ah ha ha ha, Thomas, blah blah blah. Like what? I don't know.
I think they're
that
both really
opening
like
shot with
playing at
him.
being adults in many
Yes.
ways.
Exactly, and being fancy men about town, and Thomas is trying to like, you know, punch above his weight, like as far as like class wise, because he's not in the same socioeconomic class as Friedrich is. Oh, really quickly before we get away from it though, I just want to point out that not only is Willem Dafoe one of Robert Eggers' babies, but my boy Ralph Ineson is also one of his babies, and he's
That's
also been in every single one of his movies. I don't know if he was in the Lighthouse, because I've fallen asleep every single time I've watched The Lighthouse.
He
don't
loves a
think he is.
sleepy movie, Robert Eggers.
I don't think he's in that one. I don't think it's it's not a bad movie. I just literally have started it past 9 p.m. every single time, and that's a lights out for me. But Ralph Ineson was left out of a lot of the press tour for this, and I think that is
Oh
mean.
my god.
He was like, there was like
Dr.
this video that was
Sizer,
like,
or whatever his name
yeah.
is.
I was like, get Ralph in there. I want to hear his talk about a spooky voice. He didn't have to do coaching with an opera teacher like Bill Skarsgård did to have the sexy, sultry voices deep as God.
Okay,
Is that a
I
phrase? Now it is.
also want to say justice for Bill Skarsgård for not getting an Oscar nom, because Adam Brody had to use AI for a fake Hungarian accent.
Adrian.
Adrian Brody.
What did I say?
Adam
Adam.
Brody.
Adam
Fine.
Brody. Ah,
Adam
They're
Brody
brothers, aren't
is
they?
starring in the Brutalist.
Adam Brody could do no wrong.
He's
Adam Brody would
really
have committed.
Adam Brody would never,
Adam
okay?
Brody would never. But like Adrian Brody used AI to like create
Adrian
this
Brody didn't. The
accent.
director did. Don't shit on Adrian Brody. But yeah, they used it on him. I'm sorry,
I don't
your
know.
point
Adrian
still
Brody's a
stands.
bad guy. So
No, what? Don't. I
Yeah.
can't lose so
Adrian
Weird.
Brody, historically bad guy. We are allowed to shit on
No!
him.
Okay,
Yeah.
fine. Shit on him. Keep going. I'm sorry I said anything. Why? Every time we do an episode, I find out about another man who's bad.
Girl.
Girl, let me
Anyway,
shit on everybody because they're
And
all
some
I thought he was
bad.
They're
hot. I
still
thought he's
mothers.
hot, and I love
He has
his
a
nose.
beautiful nose. So I'll give
God.
him that, but he's a bad guy.
Okay, keep going. I'm upset. Oh my
But like
wow.
but Bill really put his whole Decray, you know, Vampussy in this.
Yeah, he really did put his Van Pussy into this. It's really. Oh yeah, we can. I just. I'm still reeling. I'm moving on. I'm moving on. Look into Bill Skarsgård's sexy eyes on IMDb, Monica, and focus. He is so incredible in this.
Okay,
He's so
also-
good at like he's like what's his name? Oh God, the guy who's in The Shape of Water, who is the
Doug
fish
Jones.
man.
Doug Jones.
Doug Jones, yes. He's like Doug Jones in a way where like people love to like play with his face because he's got those fucking crazy expressive
And he's
eyes.
Similarly
Beautiful.
tall and slim.
Yes.
He
Yes.
also
totally.
looks a lot like Steve Buscemi. Which
Steve Buscemi's hot.
I know,
What
as
if they
somebody attracted
kissed?
to Steve Buscemi, like everybody's like, I don't get it. I'm like, what don't you get about he looks like Steve Buscemi? And they're like, that you're not helping your case. I'm like, yes, I am.
I think
Also,
you don't have the vision, and that's fine, but you need to look inwards.
which one
Not-
of you is gonna buy me the life-size cardboard cutout of Count Orlok?
Monica.
Ooh.
I could put him right there.
Have it all the time.
Monica wants to do it.
I should bring monstrous spooky twos back into frame more often. She's just sitting over there right now. What was I gonna say? Bill
Look into Bill
Skarsgård's
Skarsgård's
sexy.
eyes.
Oh, I think that my fiance Adam looks like Bill Skarsgård. It's just because they're Eastern European, but I don't think that
Mm.
Adam looks like Steve Buscemi, which is a good thing for me in this case. I think
Bill
it's just they
Skarsgård's
have
not Eastern European. He's Swedish.
He's got
I don't
the
know enough
Eastern
about geography to
European-
get into this conversation.
He's got the Eastern European like eye kind of look thing. I don't know. Adam's Polish, so they're not the same ethnicity or whatever. But like, I think that, and someone else just said that it's not just me. Marion said it, and that's my friend, and she is objective, and she said it to me, and I didn't bring it up first. So fuck you. Anyway,
Well, there
I'm
you
being
go.
defensive.
Yes,
So,
Sydney.
and that's on God.
Good luck getting that cardboard cut out now, Sydney.
It's okay. I'm
Anyway.
asking Taylor and Alex to buy it. It's only
Okay,
$45.
okay.
That's so funny. Um, God, yeah. I mean, this movie also, I know we've been like just having a general conversation about it, and we'll probably keep doing that throughout. But I will say that the opening shot of this movie is like fucking crazy style.
It's so good.
And it's all one shot.
Where
It's
she like
all one shot.
emerges from the darkness.
Like from that first moment, the whole thing. And that's so hard to do, and it's hard to notice too because there's so much going on in that scene, and there's the subtitles for Count Orlok speaking Dayish. How do I say it? Dacian. That's the language that he's speaking, which is a dead language spoken by the people who would later become Romanians.
Oh,
Anyway,
cool.
that's one thing I did look up today. But
I was
God.
watching the Raiders of our internet besties, Raiders of the Lost Pod. I was watching their video on this, and they
cool.
talk a lot about like the camera stuff. So if you want more educated information about the camera thing, because you're not gonna get it here, go watch
You might
their
get some
video.
of it. You're not gonna get none
Some
of it.
Yeah, I mean,
No, they were like film broing out on it, and I was like,
well, they make movies now. I'm really
that's what I'm
excited for
saying. I'm like,
them.
they know more. They know
Yeah,
all the
they're
technical
literally doing the
terms.
shit. I'm really stoked for them. Yeah, no, it's just such an insane scene, and like, imagine this. You're just Los lonely girl. You're just a little lonely gal. And you're like, could I have a friend, universe, please? And then you accidentally wake up an ancient, evil warlock, because he's literally a warlock, by the way. We'll get into that. And you start a psychosexual love affair. And you're just saying, I want an imaginary friend. And instead you get Count Orlok. It's bad luck. It's bad luck for young Ellen here.
Well,
This is
speaking of the end of The Witch, a lot of people kind of look at it as like a not a continuation exactly, but it's almost like those last few minutes of The Witch are sort of the first few minutes of this movie because I mean, in that one, the devil is the one approaching her, and the devil has also isolated her to get her that way. And in this one, Ellen
Yeah.
is already isolated,
Mm-hmm.
and reaching out. So the dynamics are a little different, but it's like that first pact, and that kind of, I think, looking at it in that context kind of opens the door for a couple different readings of this movie, kind of in the same way that some of the like good for her movies you can look back on a second watch and go, actually, maybe it's not so good for her.
Mm-hmm.
Like we
Like
talked about with
Midsummer.
Midsommar, yeah, where it's like
Mm-hmm.
this is maybe not a great position to be in, and like you watch The Witch, and it's like, well, she was having a terrible time in the whole movie, so maybe getting to enjoy the taste of butter and dance naked with her new friends is like
Mm-hmm.
an upgrade, but also, maybe if none of that had ever happened in the first place, that would have been the best situation for her. So it's one of those
Mm-hmm.
things where it's like, it's this erotic fantasy, but it's also like this predatory tale of like
Yeah, because she's literally a
grooming.
child.
And yeah, I mean,
The whole
there's the dynamics are really interesting. And I think there's a lot of support in the movie for both reads. But
Yeah. No, because it's definitely like, I don't know. I saw a lot of like angry discourse about this movie too, where people were like pissed. They they okay. I don't I'm gonna paraphrase here because
okay.
obviously. But like there was this debate where some people like couldn't like get past the predatory nature of Nosferatu. Obviously he's a predator. But like and he's literally preying on a child, so that's terrible. But like people were like, this is a disgusting story about a child predator and blah 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 blah, and it shouldn't have been made and stuff like that. And I'm just like, you have to be able with art. This is getting broader than I was expecting it to, but you have to be able in art to depict despicable things, to like dive into that sometimes. And it's not like like condoning that, obviously.
It's not an endorsement.
No, it's not an endorsement at all. And I feel like if you just look at it from that perspective, you're leaving so much behind, because I think that it is a complicated situation. Obviously, like if we're getting into the more literal interpretation of this movie, like, and what is happening to her, like she's probably like, yeah, groomed by Nosferatu because they had this experience as a child. But I think that like she is repulsed by him, but I think she also like does have real love for him too, in this fucked up way. And it can be both things, you know.
Like
It can be,
she desires him for
she
sure.
does,
And
yeah,
she's disgusted at herself for desiring him.
yeah,
I also think it doesn't even have to be about desire necessarily, or desire for him, for there still to have been like pleasure there, whether or
yeah,
not it was something that she wanted. And I think as an abuse narrative, there's a lot of room for really complicated feelings there, where she
yeah,
literally explains at one point, like, my nobody has physically touched me in any kind of platonic way or otherwise in so long, and then she reaches out into the void just for anybody, and he reaches back, and it's like this sexual experience. And so even if you read it in a explicitly and only non-consensual capacity, there's still this like shame tied up, and like even if I didn't want it, but it like still felt good. And how do I reckon with that, and how do I not blame myself for that? And I don't know, there's all these different um elements, and that's kind of why it's important sometimes to depict narratives like this, even if they're terrible, even if they're not something that you want to see happen to somebody in real life. First of all, these are fictional characters. Second
yeah,
of all, it helps real people with similar experience mirror
totally.
their things, find empathy and sympathy, be able to see it in somebody else and go, obviously that is not her fault. And it can help them to sort of recognize what wasn't their fault, and the way things
Uh-huh.
just happen sometimes, or the way you are preyed on sometimes. There, I don't know, it's just like these movies can be triggering for sure for people with these
Totally.
experiences.
Totally.
um but also they can be really validating for people with these
Mhm.
experiences. And a lot of people that I saw talking about that same narrative and kind of pushing against that same narrative were saying, especially with like Nosferatu feeding on you as a metaphor for sexual assault, that positions Thomas as a survivor as well, and like
Totally.
him and Ellen and their love story and being able to come together, and him saying like, you're not unclean, like you are not unpure because of this, and like there's still love
Yeah,
between
that was
them, and they
beautiful.
still
That's a
are
beautiful
able
part
to
of
like
this movie.
reclaim their
Mhm.
sexuality together. Like
Yeah,
there's a lot of good stuff here, even if it seems scary to engage with.
exactly.
Th-
Yeah,
This is
couldn't agree
why
more.
I'm so scared for the lack of like media literacy that is happening in like
Oh, I
America
know.
specifically right now.
If you
It's
show a bad thing, that's bad.
My thing is
Okay,
no,
that's a
I
but
little
it's
hate
just like,
surface
okay,
level.
I
well,
hate the
what
argument that
what
are
you
like
just
nobody's teaching media literacy anymore. I'm like, babe, that's what English class is for. Like
yeah.
Read
Well,
your
we're
book.
supposed
Not
to
that I
have
read books in
the
my English classes, but that's what
and
they're there for,
everybody's
girl.
sorry to sound like an old fucking fart too, but like kids aren't learning it now too because they're using fucking chat GPT to
yep.
write
To
their
write all their
fucking
essays.
essays and engage, so
And
they're
not even
not
read the
actually
book, just to be like,
engaging,
what happens in the Scarlet Letter? And then ChatGPT
just says it
Right.
out
takes a
loud.
guess, I guess. I
They're
don't
not
know.
even going to Spark Notes anymore. They've moved
Yeah, I'll
past
just go to
that.
SparkNotes.
Spark
They've got
notes.
some analysis in there.
Right.
Exactly.
They
Then you
break
go to
it
find the text
down.
yourself so that you can write your essay, and then
Spark
you're at
Yeah.
notes
least
where it's
getting
at.
some
Well,
of it.
you have to learn how to synthesize information, and it's just like horrible things happen in the world, so you need a place to process them, and that's how people process things, is through art. I mean, there's other
I
ways
think
too,
somebody who
but
experienced horrific abuse should never be exposed to it ever again, and they should just feel so alone in that experience forever. Like, maybe not. Maybe we don't
no,
do it that way. Maybe someone
no,
can not watch something if that experience or that watch is going to be like terrible for them. And I am totally in support of
Yeah.
there being websites like, what's
Protecting
that
your
website,
peace.
Does the Dog Die, where it like has all the triggers for a movie if you want to go and like check
Oh,
what the
cool.
triggers are.
I didn't know
I
that
think
was
things
thing.
like that are great, but I
Yeah.
also just think like sometimes a watch is really, really hard and really, really hurts, and also is like necessary to know that you're not alone in the world.
No, I've processed so much of my grief from when my mom passed away through media. You know, like sometimes you just can't access that on the day to day. But like
Or
for
it's like
example, like
harder to
with
access when it's
yeah,
yours than when you can like have someone else's to hold.
exactly. So it can unlock things for you. The catharsis of crying watching a movie. Like I don't know, it all has so much value. I don't know. I thought that was a very interesting conversation that came up through this movie in particular. I mean, it's a fucking vampire movie. It's gonna be predatory by nature, but and they did fucking gross, scary vampire this time, so maybe it's a little less easy to watch when it's not fucking Robert Pattinson sucking on you, but like, well, he doesn't really do that. But you know what I
He
mean?
he
I don't know.
couldn't. He couldn't suck on you.
He couldn't. He
Um,
couldn't. He was sucking on that deer.
but yeah, I
Sorry.
mean, I read an article on Dread Central that was really about someone reflecting on their own abusive relationship experiences, and how they felt like that was really reflected in this story. And then I also read another article, um, that was from CBR.com where someone was only reading it from like a sexual desire lens, and how like everybody else like doesn't listen to Ellen, dismisses Ellen, and Orlok is the only one that like is able to allow her to like have this
Well,
desire. So again, two reads, but they talked about consent and vampire things in general, and it's just so murky because they are so often portrayed as these like seductive creatures. They have the
the
thrall. Like,
thrall.
is Mina really willingly giving herself to Dracula, or is she under his thrall? Like, that is so unavoidable a lot of times in vampire media, and it's like just similarly entangled here, where does she know what she's agreeing to when she makes this pledge, this vow in the beginning? You know, she
No.
is a child, she wants comfort. He says, I'll be with you, girl. And she doesn't know what she's signing on for necessarily when she says, great, would love to have a friend. I reached out for a spirit of comfort, and if you answered, that must be you. And there's
Well,
also just like, sorry, I'll let you talk in 1 second. But
no,
I
it's
think
fine.
it's so interesting also, like, that's a very real experience people have with past abusive relationships, where they have a new partner and it's a new healthy relationship, new healthy happy dynamic, and it's still like there's something about the past partner where they understood you in a way that was unique to other relationships you've had, and it's like you don't want to go back to that necessarily, you don't necessarily prefer that to what you have now, but it is a really hard thing to let go of and accept that you don't get to have anymore in
Yeah.
exchange for someone who maybe respects you or whatever it is in this various capacity. But
No, I mean that was literally perfectly leads into exactly what I wanted to say, which is that like Ellen is a different type of person. She's not the average bitch. She is a sleepwalker, and apparently back in this time period, sleepwalkers were thought to be in touch with another realm, like one foot in this world, one foot in the other. There, I think they say this in the movie, or again, it's one of the millions of Robert Eggers interviews that have popped up on my Instagram over the past month, but like she had a second sight where she
mhm.
could like see the future a little bit
Yeah.
too, and it ostracized her from her father, from her family, because her mother passed away, right? Or was it her dad?
Yeah, that's the when she's talking to Willem Dafoe, she's explaining that, where she's like, I always knew what I was
Yeah,
going to get for Christmas. I knew when my mom was going to
yeah,
die. And then when she did, that scared my dad. And like, that's what
yeah,
left her so
exactly.
isolated.
So she was so you're muted,
You're
Sydney.
muted.
Well, right at the very beginning, Count Orlok even tells her like you are not from this
Of
world. Like
this
you are
world.
not
You're not
human.
like
You're not
other
human.
girls.
And so like we know immediately.
Wow.
Wow. He's
Are you telling me I'm unique, Daddy
Oh my
Orlock?
god.
Daddy Orlock.
Thank you.
But like we know from the jump, like she's weird. She is like
She's weird.
like
You see
she's
that hat on her
lonely.
head?
She's weird. You know,
And she can't relate to normal humans, and she can relate to the supernatural being because she
Mhm.
kind of is one too. This
Yeah, I
kind
mean,
of
Willem
keep
Dafoe
going.
says that to her later, where he's like, "You exist in this other place. I'm like a tourist to that. Like I'm an able tourist,
Yeah.
but you're in this whole other thing." And so Orlok really is the only other person or thing that she's ever encountered that like has that in common with her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's really interesting because there's so much lore that Robert Eggers like wrote into this story. Like I've seen the original. Did you guys see the OG
No,
1922
I
one?
haven't seen any of the other ones.
I
I've
haven't seen
only
the
seen
fell
70s
Stoker's
one.
Dracula.
I fell asleep during my headphone fell out. Hold on.
Oh no.
we got a jumper.
I did fall asleep in it because you have to read everything. And I had not watched a silent movie before, so I sound like an idiot. So I didn't glean as much from it, but like there's a lot there, obviously. But Robert Eggers went in and wrote like pages and pages of backstory for like every single character and gave that to everyone. And I was fucking searching the internet trying to find it. Did you find it, Chelsea, perchance? I saw you had all
No.
those links. I don't think it's been released yet, but it again reminded me of just another parallel to Guillermo del Toro and Crimson Peak. He did the same thing for all of those characters and wrote all these pages and pages of background. So I think they actually are very similar directors in that way that they really think things through. But yeah, that's where we find out all this information about like Count Orlok that he well researched, like with Romanian history, and he was literally like honestly, like I was getting Rasputin vibes from him during the movie. I don't know if I turned to you and said that during the movie, but I think that I
think
did.
so.
But
The
he
falling
literally,
apart is very Fox Anastasia.
I know, yeah, no, he, and I also, okay, sorry, revealing too much about myself. I found the Rasputin in Anastasia to be hot and sexy too, even though he was disgusting and vile. So there's a lot there, but it's a similar thing where, like, in life, Count Orlok was literally like a wizard or like a magical man.
Yeah.
And he
They
like
say
did
he like
like
studied the Sonoloran or whatever
he
it
was
was called.
Solo Monar. And it was a school of dark magic. No, he studied at the Scholomance crazy style. A
Crazy
school of
style.
dark magic located in Transylvania run by the devil himself. If some legends
Whoa.
are to be believed. Yeah, this is from a Screen Rant article, which I'll link. And so because he was a solo monar, so that means he was a servant of the devil, the solo monari. They learned how to communicate with animals, control and manipulate the weather, slay, and most notably ride dragons. There was the
Whoa.
fucking dragon. We could have had the fucking. I'm sorry, I just finished Onyx Storm or whatever. So did Sydney. Is that the name of it, Sydney? You'll have to come back and tell me. But the new Fourth Wing book. La la la. Anyway, back to
I
this
think so.
movie.
I feel like I saw
Yeah.
somebody on Instagram reading that.
But oh, okay. Here, another thing that was cool about this was that some accounts indicate that the Solomonari had a book containing all of their knowledge, and Robert Eggers literally had that book. Like he created that book in the
Oh.
movie. He didn't like write the whole thing. Maybe he did. He's a fucking
Maybe
crazy
he
guy. He's
did.
been working on this for
He found
fucking
it
10 years.
in his quest for knowledge and research on this film. He found the original book, the tomb.
He was but Knock. Is that how you say it? Is that what they're calling
Canuck.
everyone? Canuck?
Hair Canuck.
Hair Canuck. Has the book on his desk. That's what
Oh
that book is.
yeah.
Yeah, and when they like
Okay,
uncover the rug and everything.
I
But
have to
anyway,
be
all that to
honest.
say, he's a magic man, and that's why him and Ellen fucked with each other heavy because they're both magic people.
Yeah.
Yes.
I know you guys are saying this is his most accessible movie and he did that on purpose and that was kind of not his goal necessarily, but that was his read on it as well. I don't know that I felt that way, because I watched The Witch in theaters, and again, I didn't know what anybody was saying necessarily the first time around, but I got the vibes and I was really into it. I
Yeah.
saw this one in theaters with you. Again, I was so sleepy. But
No,
the whole time I was just like, this is Bram Stoker's Dracula, and obviously I knew it was like based on that, but I didn't know how much overlap there would be, and I like really struggled. I was very like, okay, like
no, you didn't
about the
seem
first
like
time
you
I saw
loved
this
it
movie. No, I really
afterwards.
wasn't
I
that
was going
into it.
crazy, and you were like, yeah.
Yeah, well, I
You
mean,
were like,
I'm
you said,
not.
quote, I can see why you'd love it so much. Or
Well, it's a
something
very
like that.
Monica movie, and I'm not really into like period pieces, and
Yeah.
I'm not usually into like the grim gray style of movie so much.
Mm-hmm.
And in relation to Dracula's Bram Stoker's Dracula, at least is like so camp and colorful in a
Yes.
really fun way.
Very different stylistically.
But this movie for me like really benefited from a rewatch, like even just starting it a second time the other day, like having a, seeing things again and like having the benefit of the full movie and like less of the distraction of being like, okay, how much of Bram Stoker's Dracula is it going to be? Really allowed me to like sit with it more. And especially this morning, I really like tuned in a way I hadn't been able to the previous two times. And I gotta be honest, some of it that I think was probably just user error. And some of it again was like Dracula interference because I really didn't understand that Herr Canuck and like the lunatic were the same guy the first two times. It was only this because like Renfield
Oh.
and like his and Jonathan's boss I think are two different people in Dracula, so I didn't understand
Yeah,
even
yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
confluence of those two characters.
Yeah.
There are two rivers. One is Renfield.
Field.
One is
Yeah,
Also
but I
Stupid.
played by
Nicholas Holt
Nicholas Holt.
in
Yeah.
Renfield
Renfield.
is the name of
Yeah,
that
and
movie.
okay, also another thing like that, Willem Dafoe was literally Nosferatu in a
He
movie
played
that I can't
Max
remember what.
Shrek. It was like The Shadow of the Wolf or something like that. He
I'll look
played
it up
Max
right now.
Shrek, who was the actor who played Nosferatu. So he plays Max
Yeah,
Shrek playing Nosferatu.
so cool. I
Inception.
love that. No, that could be confusing, but he like that was another part that was a fun rewatch moment is that original scene where you meet Knock, which I can't believe that's how you say it. I don't know why I don't remember that, but I can't believe it. Anyway, because he like is making like little vampire jokes in that first scene.
He's
Like
such a bitch.
he's making little fucking jokes. I was like, that I really liked that actor. Simon McBurney is the actor.
Yeah, he was great.
He
He
went full
slayed
freak.
it.
He
When he got
freaked
his
it,
tushy
bitch.
out, loved
Yeah,
it.
he did
He
full freak
freaked
it.
it. Oh my god, I was so impressed. I was like, yes, yes, girl, go crazy.
Well, I also like the first time we meet him with Thomas,
Yeah,
how he like just keeps bringing up Providence all the time. Like he'll it's like
Providence.
Providence. Oh, it's Providence. Providence. And Providence is literally like a higher being controlling like fate, basically. And he's working for Orlok, who is like, it
I
doesn't
didn't
Pulling
matter
think
who
strings.
about
Ellen
that.
was with, right? Like the fact that Thomas is in real estate. Okay, so Orlok is manipulating whoever to get Thomas to do all this stuff. Like it doesn't matter who Thomas was. Orlok would have manipulated whoever it was to get to Ellen, right? And so it's like, oh,
Yeah.
it's
Well,
you, it's fate, it's like it's Providence. And he says it like 6 or 8 times in this like really short period of like
yeah.
time in the
And it
first
just
time he's
seems like
on
it's his
screen.
quirky thing, and he's super religious because, like, it
Uh-huh.
also can be related to God. That's what
Because he's like, oh,
typically
you're
is.
15 minutes late, but I wasn't ready for you before. It's Providence.
Uh-huh.
It's Providence, yeah. It's providential or whatever they say that at one point too. Um, but oh, I had a really fun point and it's gone. Somebody
It'll come
take
back.
the wheel.
It'll come back.
I love when he bites the head off the pigeon. Oh.
Yeah, that was real metal.
I loved that. Oh, I remember. Okay. So you said pigeon, it all came back to me. It has nothing to do with that.
I knew that would work.
Okay, so I wish I had watched this like one more time, even though I have seen it 3 times now, but I only got to rewatch it once for this thing because
Episode.
there's so many fucking details. But I think I totally didn't get so much didn't stick in my mind the first time that I thought maybe I was watching the director's cut. I was like that part where
Makes so
Ellen
much
is,
more sense when I have the subtitles on, you know?
well,
Yeah,
I
watching
don't
this
even
movie
know,
with
there's just whole
subtitles
parts I
was a
forgot.
blessing.
That was very helpful.
Yeah.
No, but there's that part where Ellen is like literally doing the exorcist voice and she's like,
yeah.
whatever.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, I don't remember. Did that happen the first time around? Anyway, I think it was just too much for my brain to take in on
Yeah, you
Christmas
can't
Day.
store it all.
No. So, but something that I didn't really catch before, like, they do make it very abundantly clear that that paper that Thomas signs, that is all in Dacian, by the way, or in the mother tongue, so he has no idea what he's writing, is like an annulment of his wedding to Ellen, right?
Yeah.
But I just didn't really understand because there's just so much going on. Like Count Orlok, like we were talking about consent earlier too. Count Orlok literally needed her to be single and not like literally,
Married.
like it was imperative that he annulled their marriage, and she had to say like she had to come to him willingly. And I just didn't understand, like he literally like needed her to like be a single woman ready to marry him for
Not
this whole
only
thing
do
to
I need to
happen.
annul your legal marriage, but also your prior consent you gave me when we first hooked up. That's not good enough. I need you to do it again.
I just thought that was really
To
interesting. I
recommit to me.
totally really didn't. Yeah, I don't know. His seriousness about her, it was still following like the conventions of the time for matrimony almost, which I thought was very interesting and fancy for, I guess he is a count. I guess he is a count and he was a fancy famous
He's a
whatever
lord.
rich lord. Yes. Oh my god. The part when he's like making Thomas call him my lord. I was like,
Right.
horny.
Like, you will like call me by the status of my birth.
The blood of my
motherfucker.
station.
Yeah. God, it's just so interesting. So
But also,
interesting. Yeah,
to
go.
like
Sorry.
the way that when he has to sign that paper, how you were saying that you like didn't really understand it the first time you watched. Like,
Well, they don't tell you till later.
Yeah,
But
but
keep
like
going. Sorry.
you could see like that, but just like watching that whole scene, like leading up to it and all this kind of stuff was very disorienting. Obviously for Thomas, but like for the watcher itself too. Like
You're
it's
putting
this, like,
you in his shoes. Yeah.
it's this weird like heady experience
Well,
and like
he's like
vibes and stuff.
so viscerally afraid that whole scene too. Like he's
Pure
like
terror.
Nicholas Hoult
shaking. Yeah.
plays scared so well. Harry Styles could never. I'm just saying.
Yeah, no. Nicholas Hoult is so talented. He's
I
such a
love-
scream king. I love
He's
him.
been so busy lately.
Yeah,
I love
he's in
Nicholas
everything.
Hoult.
Him and
I have
Jack
loved him
Quaid.
since Skins UK.
You
I
want
want to
to
watch that.
You should, because it
I want to watch
just
that.
reminded
Dev
me
Patel
of
as well.
my teens. And
Dev
Daniel,
Patel's in Skins?
Kaluuya?
yeah, he's in it too.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Daniel Kaluuya. Oh, baby Daniel Kaluuya.
Also,
Oh,
he
so
was on
cute.
Simon's playing
so cute.
back from Sundance. Simon was like live texting me
Ah.
like,
That's
oh
so
my
cool.
God.
Yeah, I mean, there's so another point of this movie that I think is like just a little blip, but it's so fabulous is the part when on his journey Thomas like comes across like the Roma people.
Yeah.
And oh my god, that fucking cunty dance lady. Like they did so many I'm sorry. There are some really hilarious scene change, like choreographed scene changes in this movie, and some of them hit and for me so hard and some of them didn't, but like the dancing one was so good, like how the camera like followed the dancers and then it like led to that sexy man who made everyone laugh at Thomas. And I was like, I remember when I first saw that, and I think it every time because it pans to him and everyone's laughing at him hysterically. And I'm like, okay, the hat is funny, but he's just trying something new. You don't need to laugh that hard because the hat does look really
You're
stupid.
crushing his confidence.
I thought that whole part was really, really interesting. And also like harkens back to her original like text to when like he tells that's in the book when he tells the people like, oh, I'm going up to the count's home, his castle, and they're like, don't fucking go there.
He's like flipping
everyone
through
there
the
is
translation book,
terrifying.
being like, they keep saying devil, evil, what's going I don't know
understand.
why,
What?
but I'm a little concerned.
Yeah, but I thought that
I'm in danger.
the virgin on the horse, the sexy naked virgin on the horse, that was super interesting because like I think when we first watched it, or maybe this was just like I saw another video online of a woman who was like a witch lady, and she was like they weren't sacrificing her, don't worry. Something about a virgin being on a white stallion. If you put a virgin on a white stallion in this mythology or
Superstition
lore,
or
the horse will guide you to a sleeping vampire or to the grave where there is a
Oh.
vampire. So that's what that was. That's what was happening.
yeah, because we never actually see her get sacrificed. We just see
Yeah.
that vampire get
Yeah,
the
she's fine.
stake
They're not
driven
gonna hurt
into
her.
it.
She's good. She's just using her virginness to guide the white stallion to
virtue.
the vampire.
Her virginal
Yeah, her
powers.
virginal virginness or virtue is another word for it. I thought that was interesting too. And also Chelsea and I had a funny moment after the first time we watched it where I was like, so interesting that he woke up and he had that little talisman around his neck. He had like the little cross. And then I also misinterpreted it and I was like, and they put on those special shoes. It was just mud on his shoes to symbolize that he had been out the night before, but I thought they
He
gave
really,
him
it
special
wasn't just
shoes.
a nightmare.
I really understood that completely.
You tried. That's all that matters.
I
That's
tried.
beautiful.
It's so beautiful.
I also, did they give him a special necklace or that was his locket with the little?
No, they gave him a special. So when he first gets into the hotel after he's like, I'll pay double or whatever, this
Mhm.
woman is like talking to him in, I don't know, Dacian, Romanian, whatever it might be. And being like, don't go up there. Please don't go up there. You can't go up there. And then she like presses a necklace into his hand. And it's like a wooden cross kind of thing to protect him. And then he like doesn't want it, obviously. But then when he wakes up in the morning, it was around his neck. So they like put it around him in the night after he like I guess passed out from seeing that vampire vomit blood.
Yeah.
And they just carried him back to bed.
He carried him back to bed with his muddy boots.
And they
Not
tucked him
They
in.
did what they
special
could for
sandals.
him. I
Yeah.
mean, obviously, it's very alarming to wake up completely alone in this town and your horse is gone, but they really did everything they can to be like, we are taking away your method of transportation, so you can't go to Count Orlok's castle, and we're all gonna dip, so there's nobody you can even ask for help or where your horse went or anything. We're just gone. And hopefully that'll stop you. Unfortunately, he's so determined to go and get his promotion and his money so he can go home and have this beautiful, lovely life with Ellen and their cat Greta.
Yeah,
But
Greta, great name
to
for a cat.
create.
I know it is a great
I
name
know
for a
that
cat.
kitty's so cute. He really wants to create a beautiful life for her. One interpretation in one of the interviews I was looking at was that maybe she is uh from a richer family than he is, and so she's like having a life that like is not to like whatever the standard that she grew up in, whatever.
He
But
feels
she
like
doesn't.
he has to,
So
yeah.
he's like, yeah, feels like he has to like work extra hard to get her what she rightfully deserves, which is
Or
very
is
very
used
sweet.
to, accustomed to.
But she doesn't care. She doesn't care because like literally she just met a man that made her
She just wants
terrible melancholy
love.
visions stop. You know, like that's how much their love was healing for her.
I also kind of took it as like he wants to do it for her, but he's also in competition with Friedrich. What's his name?
Yeah, Friedrich
Aaron
loaned
Taylor.
him money at the very
Yeah,
least.
like he sees
Yeah,
his friend
and
who's
he is a man.
inherited like his family's money basically, and so he is like, oh, I've gotta live up to my friend, like my friend's already given me money, like I need to do this, because like Ellen
It's
is
the
like,
pressures of the
I
time
don't
too.
need
Yeah.
this, like I just want you stay with
Stay
me,
with
like,
me.
and he's like, nope, I've got to do this. Like it's also like a little take on like masculinity
Totally.
of
Totally.
like the time too, like I
Robert
have
Eggers
to.
talked a lot about the patriarchy and its role in this movie.
Yeah. I think it was such a brilliant choice for him to put this movie through the lens of Ellen, because
Ellen,
Mhm.
that is not the case at all in the OG. The OG, it's like all about Thomas and his journey, and there's just little blips of Ellen, and then I mean the same thing happens, but I honestly didn't really get that when I watched. I did a bad job watching it, so we're gonna move past it. But yeah, I think that really enriches this entire movie, because it's like the time at the time, like you see the strife between Friedrich and Ellen throughout the movie, where Ellen is an outspoken and strange woman and Friedrich is like, know your place, blah 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 blah. They
Yep.
have those fights or whatever, and she's in such stark contrast to Anna, who's like this beautiful little angel babe, who loves Jesus and her children so much. And so she really is like being seen as the hysterical woman. They're just plying her with ether, which like is ether fucking like what's the shit that you when you kidnap someone?
Chloroform.
Yeah,
Chloroform? Is ether chloroform?
it's probably in
Ah,
the same vein.
basically,
giving
I think is the
chloroform.
takeaway. Yeah.
I was like, I never knew about that. But yeah, it's like, oh, she's just this hysterical woman with a weak constitution who has like, what does Ralph Ineson's character say? Like, I've seen
Somnambulism.
many women with like a affliction of the nerves come up with
Yep.
insane
Mm.
delusions or whatever, but like she's not. She has a second sight. She has this connection to the
In
other
another life,
spiritual.
a time not
supernatural.
of science, she would have been a goddess of Isis or some such thing.
I'm so obsessed with Willem Dafoe. I also think Willem Dafoe's so hot. He's like a little
He's
beautiful, creepy
perfect.
elf, a sexy little elf, and
He knows how to freak it every single time, and I
I
like it.
love that for him. I'm really glad we got to see the dick. I think that's important.
I
I
wish they
on
would
my
have lingered a little
rewatch,
longer.
yeah, on my rewatch, it was like we saw a glimpse of it in that one moment, and it was way less than I remembered, and so I kept waiting for there to be more dick, and there wasn't.
Well, there's no more dick, but you do get him that crazy scene where like Thomas thinks that it's Ellen seducing him, kind of, and then it keeps switching between Ellen and Orlok, and then Orlok's nude body
like,
is like literally
gyrating on him. Yeah.
gyrating, humping him, sucking from his. I like that he sucks from the
Heart.
chest. Yeah, from
He
the.
goes like from the heart. I love the way that like no, because normally like when you think of like they're on the neck, and that's very
Yeah.
sensual, very stuff. But like
Sensual, yeah.
the way that he was like crouched on top of like Thomas and also Ellen reminded me of like a lion, right? Like
Mhm.
or like a hyena or like
Yeah,
a
no, I
literal
see that.
animalistic predator where they're like
Yeah.
like latching themselves to them. But also
It
he
almost
was
is more
dry
Edward
humping
Cullen in
him.
that way.
Yes.
They're not sucking blood, they're fully munching.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like
But they are dry humping. So
But he's humping him.
of course he is.
it's so.
I would too.
I think this movie's so interesting because like it is still so sexual. Everything like this is one of the most sexual movies I've seen recently. But like he did such a good job of like making it horny, but making the sex like carnal in the true sense of like carnal, where it's not like
Yes.
it's like arousing in a wrong and grotesque way, but like he looks like a hyena, but he still looks like he's having intercourse with Thomas when he's like on him, it's so. I just think it was so well
It's
done.
really good.
It's so well done. It is so horny. And Lily Rose Depp, I'm sorry, let me just toot her horn a little bit. She talk about somebody who I don't know. I didn't watch The Idol. I haven't watched any of her shit. So
Yeah.
I didn't know she had this in her. And I think she fucking did a great job. I know some people didn't like it, but I thought she fucking killed this.
Here's the thing. Oh, am I?
No,
No, you're
good.
speaking.
Oh, I'm not
We
muted.
We
Okay.
can hear you.
Lily Rose Depp's forehead deserves an Oscar all by itself. It is beautiful. I think Lily Rose, like, she was a little bit unproven, right? Like, people were like, she did The Idol, which, you know, got
I know. So messy.
some people really liked it. Some people were like, okay, this is a little creepy. Her dad is unfortunately Johnny Depp, but her
Yeah.
mother is badass. What's her name?
Vanessa
Big
Paradis.
Vanessa
Paradis,
Paradis,
who
who
is
we saw in Knife Plus Heart, as you remember.
yeah, she's like a badass model, actress, singer, and
She's French as fuck.
exactly. And also, I have loved Lily Rose Depp ever since that one photo of her and Timothy Chalamet making out on a yacht.
Why
Surface.
aren't they still together? I'm sorry, I'm still mad about
She's
it.
dating a queer person now.
She's
oh,
She's in a
she's
queer
dating
relationship.
Shake.
what is it? Shake?
Like 070 Shake or something like that.
Yeah.
Had never heard of this person before, but
Yeah,
very
I'd heard of
happy
them
for them.
They
before.
make music. I love.
Okay, yeah.
But
Never mind, I take it back. That's better.
but like
That's way better. Keep going.
I think Lily Rose Depp has this like beautiful, like weird face, right? Where like she can go the like Keira Knightley way of acting,
She's
but
got
like
a period.
Winona
face.
Ryder it a little bit, where she can take on these like more like freakish period pieces and like really fit into that role.
Well, I just really like it's so clear to me that she watched Possession to do this role too. Like that sort of
Her
like
physical acting
oh,
is
the physical
so good.
acting was so incredible. Like it just and I don't know, she definitely took a page out of Isabella Adjani's book. That's who was the main character in Possession. But it's just the physicality was so insane and it like I don't know, it was a lot, and so I can see how some people might be like, oh, she overacted it or whatever, but she didn't. Like it
She
like
perfect.
this character is like deeply disturbed. And also, goddamn, I related to Ellen so much this watch because I too have been plagued by prolific and horrific dreams of late. And sometimes you have to be like, to your fiance or husband, you have to be like, but I must tell you of the dream I had last night before
Let me tell you
go.
of my dream.
Let me tell you of my dream. And I've also been having a mental breakdown all the time. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, I feel so seen by Ellen right now.
Monica, in your wig, you should just reenact that scene to Adam and like full pussy out act it. And I think that'll be a cathartic release for you.
Dude, that fucking dream that she has is so like foreshadowy.
It wasn't you. It was death itself. And
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
And
I was so happy.
Oh my God. And like she's talking about the stench of the bodies, her family dead before her, and she's so
It's giving Twilight Breaking Down Part 1.
fucking God, Robert Eggers, man, because he fucking writes this shit too. He writes it and he directs the shit out of it. He's a brilliant man. I love him.
I love him.
And I think he's adorable. He's a cutie. I love his interviews are all so fun.
He's also just like little fucking freak.
Yeah.
I thought that Lily Rose Depp did a great job. I am hopeful that she feels good about the roles that she's taking and the performances she gives in them, but I have seen some people be like, why does she always have to like that not that she is, but that they always have her getting naked and drooling and being covered in like bottle like I don't know. It worries me a little for a young actress new to the scene if she feels like she has to do this to like be serious. But also I could see her just being like drawn to this, and I saw quotes from her talking about how really getting into the physicality of the performance was what helped her like unlock and access like the emotional sides of it, to be putting herself so much into this like performance, and going so balls to the wall with it, crazy style, that it allowed her to sort of push through whatever barriers you might have that make it harder to like access a deep internal emotional place. I both like hear the concern and I validate that, because yeah,
Mhm.
I also hope that no young actress feels like they have to be nude and writhing to show that they're a serious actress, but also like sometimes that is what a possession wouldn't be possession if Isabella Johnny wasn't fully, you know, breaking down in all different kinds of ways in the subway.
Yeah, but I mean, it's good you bring that up because, like we talked about on the possession episode, it really fucked her up. That role really fucked her up. So sometimes
Yeah.
you go places in these roles where it's it's kind of wild, and she fucking went there with this one. My God.
I also like,
Okay.
not to get it too into her personal background, but there has been controversy of her like having a much older boyfriend when she was 14 years old. And so I wonder if that was like an experience that she wanted to or was able to draw from at all with like the Orlok versus Thomas, like an old
Yeah.
relationship that maybe was not appropriate, but was like the thing that you had that was your comfort at that time, versus like being older and finding a love that like makes you happy and fulfilled. And I don't know, I just think it is interesting.
Yeah. Well, kind of switching gears a little bit, I think that something that I really wanted to research and then I didn't have enough time to get to it, unfortunately, and I wonder if you came across anything. I loved this idea as like vampirism as pestilence and as plague.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was super interesting, and I hadn't come across that in any of my vampire dabblings um before, but apparently it is like I saw somewhere that it has been done before, obviously probably in the last two Nosferatu movies. Uh but did you guys come across anything with that? I thought it was really interesting.
I don't know that I came across much with that. It does kind of make me think of 30 Days of Night, where it kind of felt like a plague upon the town, in that sense. And just like the sweeping like reach of it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think the rats aspect of it in this particular movie,
Love the
and the
rat.
rat part is so interesting with, I think Sydney was the one earlier who said like he has this power, this influence over animals, or the ability to
Mm.
control
Oh,
animals,
that was
That
or
Monica.
was me.
Monica said, okay, and it also made me
That was
think
the
of,
Solomonari people.
okay,
Those people had that power. But
it
that's
made
a
me
good
think of
point.
Nightmare Before Christmas as well, with
Oh.
Oogie Boogie, when his
Bugs. My
he gets,
bugs.
yeah, and he is just a giant pile of bugs. And I don't remember how much we talked on that episode of like, is he the collection of bugs in the suit? Is he each individual bug? Like, how does that work? But it did feel very much like the rats are in many ways an extension of Nosferatu. We see that in this scene when he
Yeah.
comes and he like calls upon Ellen to tell her like, this is the first night, by the way, and on the third night I'm gonna get you, and in between now and then I'm gonna get everybody that you care
Yeah.
about.
Fuck up
And
all your
then one
friends.
second later, cut to Anna on the floor being chewed on by rats, titty out, which is
Mm-hmm.
reminds me of the scene
The-
from The Witch with the nipple
When
and
the
the bird. He loves a
crow
little nipple.
love the love
Um,
nipple. I was like,
which
that's why I thought that. I was like, I thought
the rat
the
was
rat
chewing on her nipple. Me
bites
too.
her nipple, but no, that was the witch. That
It's
was
the
the
witch.
witch.
Um, but yeah, I mean, when he's like, I'm gonna get everybody you love, smash cut to looking down and she's being chewed on by the rats, that feels very much like those don't just like come with him, or are under his control, but are an extension of him in many ways. So the
Well,
plague is
it's
him, even
him.
if it's not, if it is a literal plague, if it's not a literal plague, it almost doesn't matter because the rats are him.
Well, that's what's so confusing because usually, like, I do see the connection overarching in vampire in the world of vampires with like sickness and vampirism because a lot of the times, like, there'll be all these dead bodies and they'll be like, people must be falling ill, blah, 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 blah. And it's more like a cover. But this one, like, the people actually are like exhibiting plague like symptoms, and dying on the street. But then there's that one plague victim that Ralph Ineson's character, and I should look up his name, but I have not done that.
Dr.
Dr. Mann,
Sizem or
Dr.
Sizemore or
Suzum,
something like that.
he brings Willem Dafoe over. God, I should know his name too. Sorry.
Sievers, Dr. Sievers, and
Dr.
von
Sievers and
Franz.
von
Eberhard von
Franz.
Franz.
Everhart, great name.
Professor
Alvin Eberhard von
von
Franz.
Franz. Of course, how could I have forgotten that name?
How could you have forgotten? Well, it's right off the tongue.
But anyway, he like brings von Franz over and is like, well, okay, look, he's got all these plague symptoms. They have like the fucking oozing, boily shit. Later on, Friedrich coughs up blood, and we'll get to that scene because wolf. But he's like, well, this guy has all these plague symptoms, right? But he is completely exsanguinated. He has no blood in his body. So it is both. Like there's a literal plague happening that is caused by Count Orlok, but he's also out there sucking people's blood too, I guess.
He's also doing some murder.
He's also doing his
It's a
classic
lot.
vampire
It's a lot
shit.
of. He's got his fingers in a lot of different pies. But I mean, also
he's bouncing so much, and
in
he's
that
looking so
scene
sexy.
when they're like at the funeral and Aaron Taylor Johnson Friedrich is being like, oh, it's just a plague. Like, you guys need to fuck off. You're being, I'm grieving and it's just plague. And Nicholas Hoult has to go like, and get his titties out and be like, it's more than just plague, so that they can see his bite and that
it's real.
he knows what he's talking about firsthand.
I think Aaron Taylor
also,
Johnson is so compelling in that part of the film as he like has that
and
like
then
shot.
he's like
not only
in
his
the
whole
wagon
life
afterwards, the carriage.
Yeah. Well, his whole life just got rocked because his whole family's fucking dead, and he loved his family so much. No matter how much of an asshole he kind of was, like he loved that wife like crazy, and he loved his beautiful cherubic children. But not only is that part of his life completely rocked, like his belief system has just got rocked too. Now he has to come to terms with the fact that like supernatural shit is real, and he's
Ellen was
staunchly, he is a ship man. He lives in the world of science or whatever that von Franz was saying was a scourge on the earth or whatever.
I think that's such an interesting exploration in this movie of like the science versus the superstition, especially after watching 30 Days of Night, where they did that whole thing where they were like, we waited so long just to be superstition so that we could so that we could be in the world of science and be regarded as something that's not real anymore. And then you have it in this movie as well, where they're kind of more actively warring with each other, and what really allows Count Orlok to prey on so many people so quickly, such a wide swath of town, is because it's being dismissed because they live in this like time of rising science and industry where they're like, oh, we're sort of, they're not like putting religion behind them obviously necessarily, but it's very much like we live in the real world now and these things don't happen anymore. And that's why he says it to Thomas at one point too, when Thomas is like, I saw this like scary thing happen down in the village, and he's like, ugh, that's just our custom. You wouldn't get it. You're a man of blah blah blah. You're a learned academic man. I don't know. It's just to have those two things in conflict very actively in this movie is an interesting conversation.
No, yeah, it's really interesting. It's like the scientific revolution is a good thing because, with the real plague, they can treat people or whatever. If they couldn't, everyone died. Whatever. That's not the point I was trying to make. But like, you can't like leave, like, to forget the stories of the past to focus on this new frontier is a flaw and is not the right choice. Porque no los dos. Like, you have to keep.
They can't help Ellen
folklore
until they bring in the supernatural element and acknowledge its existence and the role that it's playing here.
Yeah. Oh, I love this conversation we're having. I'm feeling so stimulated. I love this
Well,
You're
movie
so
so much.
smart.
it's such an
actually.
interesting movie. I really
It's
like
so
wasn't vibing
interesting.
with it that hard the first time, but the more I still like not really my thing necessarily, but I think
Yeah.
it's really well done and I think there's a lot to really parse and get into because like um to go back to the sexual assault versus sexual seduction
Yeah.
conversation,
Yeah.
the elements with Thomas, like when he is at Count Orlok's castle and he cuts his finger and Orlok kind of just like can't help himself that first night, and then it cuts to him like waking up on the floor where he was just like left, like that to me really is like a sexual assault narrative and visual where it's like he just got
Yeah.
left on the ground when he was done with him. He doesn't know what
Mhm.
happened to him. He doesn't understand like what he went through last night. But then you also have the visual comparison of Friedrich going to his wife's grave and like almost like climbing in the coffin with her and like expiring his last breaths like in her embrace and on top
That
of
like
her and the final
necrophilia
scene and
moment. Yeah.
if we know that it's love for Friedrich and Anna and like that they loved each other so purely and that almost shot is like very directly mirrored in the ending shot with Ellen and Nosferatu, then like what does that reflection say about their
That's
relationship?
really, I hadn't thought about that at all. That's really interesting point.
That is a good point.
Yeah, it's so
This movie's so
complicated.
good.
Not everything is just one thing. It's not everything is just one thing. That's why it can be
Everything can be multiple things.
like
And
we were
also
saying
art is so
before, you can
subjective
be in a
based on what you bring to it.
yeah, you
Mhm.
can be in a situation that is bad for you that you
Still
have
desire
good
or
aspect,
miss.
desire, miss, or love, or yeah,
Well, too, and
toxic.
also
That's
like,
why people get stuck in toxic things because it's not all bad all the time. It's
well,
very complicated.
and here's the thing: as somebody who's been in a horrible, toxic, abusive shit thing, sometimes when you get into a very healthy relationship, it feels a little boring, and
You're
so
not
you
used, yeah.
you're not
Yeah,
used to something that's
Oh, I
steady,
must
and
not feel
so
passionate about this because
where are
like
the
I don't have these big
fireworks?
emotions
and
anymore.
so you're like looking to go back, like you're looking to create the chaos or like looking to invite chaos back in for like different reasons.
Well, that's what's so
Yeah.
interesting about the scene with Thomas and Ellen too. When it's like
Ooh.
let us
Oh,
show him our love.
they
Yeah, well,
when
cuz
they
That
both become big
scene.
freaks.
Talk
right, but
about
it's also
crazy
like
style.
she's being like, you can't fuck me like he can. And it's
Yes.
like this moment of like, she's both trying to provoke a reaction from him. She wants him to prove, like, yes, I can, or like, I love you anyway. But it's also like this moment of like pushing someone away so that if they go, it's because you pushed them away and not because they chose to leave you.
Yes.
No, so interesting. And then it's also like Thomas is like this like sweetie little cutie boy, whatever, who's like doing everything for his wife to make her have a better life. But like he also is like into the fact that she suffers from her melancholies because he like is
Oh
raring
yeah.
to go
Thomas
right after
loves his freak
They're both
wife.
like ready to smash
when
it
she's
immediately.
rolling around the ground and like doing a big fucking hawktua on the ground and all that
She
shit, like
drooling. She's like
drooling like
ripping
crazy.
her like
The
Oh my god, how can she
ripping.
roll her eyes back like that? I'm gonna try.
again, her physical acting is
How do you
so
do that? They probably use
good.
CGI. Is it going back? What's happening?
I don't feel like you're really
What's
committing
happening?
to it the way that she did, but
I don't know how. I don't know if I have the eye muscles. She must have
But
had to do
also,
some sort of like
you
eye
have to like
training.
flutter your eyelids a little lower at the same time that you roll your eyes back.
Can't do it. It hurts really bad, so I'm not gonna do it.
but like
Um,
as like sometimes you'll find men and you'll to be like, listen, just so you know, I'm insane, and they're like, yeah, that's totally
Yeah, I love
fine,
that. And
whatever,
then
and
it's
then
like,
you be insane and they're like, why are you being insane? But sometimes you will find a man who, when you send him a china cabinet full of doll heads and you're like, I want this in my house, they're like, no, but like, fine, I guess. And
no, but like,
you
okay,
love
if
me because I'm
if
crazy.
like you will you will find a man who will love you because you're insane. And that's Thomas. Thomas is like
That's
down
Thomas.
bad for
Well,
his insane wife.
Yeah.
that's why I really feel like it is a lot of the articles that I linked are very explicit that this movie is intended in at least some capacity to be read as a love triangle. It really is like a
Porque
comparison and a
lo nos dos.
dichotomy. I know,
Yeah.
I'm almost like, okay, well, if the metaphor is sexual assault for Thomas as well, not that I think he should be in a throuple with his assaulter, but I also kind of feel like that is boy toy, and I
That
just
would
don't know
solve the
why we're not even,
problems.
I don't know why we're not even talking about that option.
We're not even considering this.
Has Count Orlok even thought about it because it could work out great for everybody.
Count Orlok
But
did
to
not try that
me,
hard to kill Thomas, in my opinion, and so I think
some
he
people
liked
argue
it.
that. The person who was like, this is just a sexy love story between Count Orlok and Ellen is like, he didn't even really want to kill Thomas. He kind of let that guy go. He really just wanted Ellen. And I think there is a read for that. But to me, the thing that makes it really clear for me that this love story is ultimately Ellen and Thomas's is we get that moment of the journeys where we see Herknock being like, he's coming, and then the plague ship lands and we know that Nosferatu is here, Count Orlok is here, and then we also see Ellen being like, he's coming, he's here, but she's talking about Thomas, even though they're arriving at the same time, she's talking about Thomas and she runs out on the street to find Thomas and to bring him in, and like that's what is calling to her, like that is what is in her heart, even though she is like a connected to both of them, literally has Count Orlok like in her head whispering horrible things to her whenever she sleeps. The when she says he's here, what she is thinking of is like Thomas has returned to her, not Count Orlok. So for me, that's where my thesis
It's hard.
is.
I think I don't know if love is, I don't know. I do think she loves Count Orlok, though, in some way.
Okay.
Not,
I think, correct me if I'm wrong. You know how at the very beginning, she like cuts off a piece of her hair and puts it in a locket? Like she knows where he's going. Like part of me wonders, like, yeah, it was for Thomas, but it was also for Count Orlok.
well, I don't
She just
think
wants to
she
give him a whiff.
knows.
Yeah.
She knows something bad's gonna happen, but I don't know if she thinks she knows
I
that
think
he's going literally to that guy's to Count Orlok's house.
I think she knows.
As I just move my whole
She
size of
could
my
know.
forehead right now.
She could know he's going to death, and I think to a degree she knows that Count Orlok is death,
Yeah.
but maybe she doesn't know necessarily a one-to-one on that. But yeah, I mean, the dream and the way that it like fits into the larger narrative is really another one of those things that can be read both ways, where like she's in, and like the wedding gown at the end, it's like she's saying like, oh, I was marrying death and I was the happiest I've ever been, even despite
Mm-hmm.
the stench of death around me and all of the
Yeah.
corpses. Or it's, but she's like crying as she's talking about it, so it's like the idea that she would be happy in this is like horrifying to her maybe, and that's why she's trying to use this to tell Thomas like something
Yeah.
bad is portended, and like she wears her wedding dress at the end to welcome Count Orlok on the third night, and it's like, is that a symbol of her like going in marriage to Count Orlok and accepting him in marriage, or is that her way of saying, I'm doing this for love of Thomas and to protect Thomas, and I'm wearing my wedding dress to Thomas
Like, it's
to like
both.
It's
have him
both.
with me in some
'Cause
capacity? Yeah, I mean, there's so
'cause
much
in
going
that
on.
final, like, obviously she doesn't want to have to lay down her life to save everyone because she loves Thomas, and that goodbye is so heartbreaking when she knows it's goodbye and he doesn't know it's goodbye. But in that final moment when the 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 crow has cawed, the crow has done, or
Right.
The
the
cock of the
cock,
crow.
the cock of the crow of the cock, the cock
The
is
crow, the
crowing.
cock.
The
The
cock of the
cock
crow.
crow.
There's
That's what he
cocks,
keeps
there's
calling it. The
crows,
cock
there's
crow.
caws. There's a lot of things happening. But she does like, he like is in that agonizing death gasm. And Count Orlok is, and Ellen like reaches up to like embrace him as he dies, to like almost soothe him as he dies, and it felt like a lover's embrace in that way too. So it's just, it's both, it's everything, it's everything, everything all at once. But just to pivot to different topic for a second here, I also really enjoyed the relationship with Ellen and Anna. And I really
That's
like
so
Emma
sweet.
Corrin a
Yeah.
lot. She's such a cool actress or actor. What are
I think
what's
they might use they
does
them
Emma?
pronouns.
Yeah. I think they use they them pronouns. Um, but anyway, Emma is very, very, very talented, and I wish that there was a little bit more of them in this. Um, but Anna herself, I love that. I just love that scene and the chemistry that those two have together when Ellen goes to Anna's bed to sleep
Can I stay
with
with
them.
you?
Yeah, like of course it had a little bit of Leslie horny vibes happening for me for a second there, but it was also just like so so sweet, and like the kiss on the forehead, and like
Yeah.
the fact that Anna calls Ellen my lovely. I just
Mhm.
think there's such like a naked affection between the two of them, and they have such a gorgeous friendship. And so I don't know, this movie is really sad too. It's so emotional, and it's so at all emotions, like there's beautiful love, there's horrific love, there's friendship, there's tragedy, and the scares are really fucking terrifying. Like when those little kids, when the daughters are being killed, that's some of the most horrific imagery I've seen, and it doesn't have to be
And it's
a bloody gore
foreshadowed
fest.
earlier in the
Oh yeah,
movie
they because
where they're like,
there's
"Daddy,
a
Daddy, there's a
monster.
The
monster in our
monster.
room." Like,
Stab the monster.
yeah.
Yeah.
I also thought it
I
was
wonder
just
if
like
he
a
was
great
coming
use
to
of
them in
child
their dreams.
actors. You know what I
Oh,
mean? Because
Yeah.
like to have them just for that moment screaming and then most of the rest of the movie you just see them playing and then like you those are probably
you see them
realistically dolls that he like tosses aside when he's
thumping
done,
on the
you know?
fucking
Yeah.
ground. That was so whoa, disgustingly but beautifully done. Woof. Robert Eggers, you sicko. You fucking sicko. Also, the jump scares in this are also good too. Like they like jump scares are usually like cheap, but that one in the very beginning when she's like, like when Ellen is
And then
like in rapture, and then like yeah, that cut to his face. Oof, that so scary. That woke me up from my sleeping. I tell you that. I was already asleep in the first minute. No, I wasn't. I was still awake. But um God, yeah, it's just this movie goes goes there. I still can't get over the Friedrich dying in the coffin with his wife.
After
Um,
sleeping with her.
yeah, because he's like in between her legs, like,
I
I
oh
don't
think his
know if
man,
pants are down.
he fucked. No, I think they're. I definitely thought he fucked her the first two times that I watched it, and then the third time I was like, I don't think he did.
yeah, I think he just got like
But
really in there. Yeah,
um, could go either
because
way.
he died of the plague. He didn't get sucked by Nosferatu. He literally, like we were talking about with the pestilence thing, he died of the plague. Like he had the pustule
Yeah, he died of the
thingies on his
plague.
face. This is interesting. Just a lot going on in this movie. And I think it's so sad too, like Thomas's reaction to that, and then Von Franz being like, we have to burn this all to the ground to cleanse their souls. Which yeah, probably after that, after the light necrophilia, probably should do some cleansing by fire. Um, but it's just so tragic too that like Von Franz knows that the only way out is through Ellen, and they had that conversation between them. I think is really a really special part as well. And when Thomas realizes that he's in the wrong place, and Von Franz like gives up the gun and is like, it had to be her. Like, and that scene of him running through the whole town, like, oh, that with that look on his face. Thank God this wasn't fucking Harry Styles. He's not ready yet. He could get there. I feel like he could get there, but Nicholas Hoult is already there. So let's
Yeah,
let the man
he's
do
already
it. Let's
there.
let the man have it. He's already there. Whew. What else, you guys? Do any other scenes or topics or
I think
Um,
the last one thing also that really
yeah?
icked me out was when like he is on top of her, she is like running her hands and she's like putting her fingers in the orifices
his like
of his body.
wounds.
And I'm like, ugh,
Ugh.
girl, ugh, girl.
She loves him, scars and all.
Um,
Scarred and all. I'm sorry.
Bones and all.
Oh, don't bring up bones at all right now. I can't handle it.
wait until next week, maybe. But there are just 1,000 things that I think are super interesting and fun
Mhm.
about this movie. On my rewatch this morning, I wasn't taking any notes. I took a lot of notes when I was watching the other day, but I didn't make it all the way through the movie that time. So I don't necessarily remember everything that got me like jazzed this morning when I was watching, but I love the scene when Nicholas Hoult is at the castle and you see him like from here on camera run all the way to the door over here, try it and have to run all the way back to the camera. I love that scene. I love when the guy at the hospital is talking about the sheep. I was just looking at the quote. And he's like, killed 3 sheep with his bare hands, and he was eating them raw, like raw. Like the
I
way he
love that
delivers
part.
that line goes
Raw.
crazy hard. Like there are
I
so
loved that
many
guy.
there are so many
Crazy
good
style.
moments throughout
Crazy
this
style.
movie. They're just
I
and
Yeah,
like you guys
more
said
love to
earlier when he's
Canuck.
like, I will be addressed as the honor of my blood demands it. And what's his face being like, do not wish to wait until morning, and he's like, I wish you to do as I request. Like, damn.
Yeah, I
Okay,
think
Dom Daddy.
also interesting, like imagery, like when Thomas goes and he stabs Knock because he thinks that he's gonna be Nosferatu in there, and it like parallels the killing of that other vampire earlier, and
Mm-hmm.
I think it's interesting too that like Canuck is just like this, like a familiar who's being fucking fucked about because he's like shocked. He's like,
It's very 30 Days
I'm
of
supposed
Night,
to
the guy in the
be
jail cell.
he's like, I'm supposed to be the king of rats. I'm not this I thought I
The
wasn't gonna
Prince of
die.
Rats. He knew he wasn't going to be king, but he was ready to
Oh
be
yeah,
the Prince
Prince
of
of Rats.
Rats.
Yeah, sorry. I wasn't thinking about how Nosferatu is literally the king of rats.
Obviously, the King of Rats.
I
Yeah,
thought
yeah.
that he was getting his little title of like he loves rats and little
He's the
weird
king,
shit.
but I get to be the King of Rats. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. But anyway, no. Nosferatu's the king of rats. By the way, Willem Dafoe really loved all the rats. He really
Yeah,
liked them
obviously.
a lot because they're really cute and they're really nice, and he was worried about them when there were so many. He
And I
didn't want to
didn't
step on them.
this wasn't my experience of researching right now, but I remember seeing it because, again, as Monica said, it has been completely impossible to avoid anything Nosferatu. You're just getting served it over and over. At least I am. But I saw
I
another thing about
like
how
every
they,
single one.
wherever they filmed, was very hesitant to allow him to shoot 2,000 rats. With just kind of scurrying about because they didn't want all of these rats to get loose. But they came up with the
These are
plan, whatever the plan was. They devised a very smart plan and they didn't lose a single rat. All the rats were accounted
amazing.
for.
And those are also incredible rat actors. And so they're
Mhm.
professionals, Chelsea. So you don't need to worry.
Raptors.
Ractors.
Raptors. Also,
Um,
apparently the cats were incredible actors as well.
oh my
Greta,
God.
I
I'm
love.
obsessed
She
with
has
Von
no master
Franz
or
being at
mistress.
Well, and
Von Franz has
a
literally
bunch
6
of cats.
cats.
Well, but that
5,
was the thing
6,
too.
yeah.
There's like a thing where like Nosferatu is the rat, and then
Ellen has her cat.
Ellen and Willem have
Oh.
cats, and so it's a cat and mouse game.
Well, that's the thing with Ellen
Ooh.
and Count Orlok as well, is like obviously she is a child and she's not responsible for what she's doing, but from his perspective, he's like, you called me. You summoned me from my slumber. You're the one that has been reaching out to me this whole time.
They had like a fated. it this is where the Bram Stoker's Dracula Mina thing comes into play, because like it's like that trope with vampirism where it's like through 1,000 years, like you've been reincarnated and we were meant to be blah 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 blah, except it's just a different interpolation of it. It is, it is copying Bram Stoker's Dracula, and they had every right to sue for whatever back in the day. But it does.
So much of it, yeah.
I also I'll say, when I watched Nosferatu 1922 or whatever, when it came out, when I watched it in 1922 is what I just made it sound like I did,
And
but I didn't
that's
do that.
accurate,
I was
because
there.
you're
I was
clearly a
there.
desiccated corpse and you're
I'm a
awake now
desiccated
because
corpse.
Sydney and I reached into the void.
Yeah.
Well,
I said we
but
can
I
need a
had the
third
same
host for
hard
a
time that
podcast.
you had, like where I was like, this is
Mm,
just fucking the same exact thing.
yeah.
And it was pissing me off because I was like, I didn't want to like rewatch for that right now, because it's a lot to rewatch Bram Stoker's Dracula. It takes a lot of you got to be mentally prepared because there's a lot of shenanigans happening, but it is distinctive. It's very distinctive, and they do something completely different with it. And then Robert Eggers now has really breathed more life into this already really cool story. Um, but I also want to say, just as like a random little thing, when Canuck ate the head of the pigeon off and the blood splurted out like with a little hose, I'm sure inside of there, I almost threw up because I was a little hungover this morning. That almost took me out. I was eating a bagel when I saw that. That was disgusting. It was fucked up. Oh, so good. I love the fucking Renfield eating of the animals thing. I think it's so interesting that that whole storyline. It's freaky. It's freaky, freaky, freaky. But to the very last scene, then I guess the very last moments there. Something I found that was really interesting is that last image. It literally like made me gasp. Probably made everybody gasp. Like that final pullback of.
Well, there's another visual, not just Anna and Friedrich, but when Eberhard von Franz, whatever his name is, when he's like flipping through that book at one point, like that's literally the same visual
Yeah.
that's on the page too.
Oh, I totally missed that. I totally missed that. I mean, it's
The
just so
maiden and death
striking.
is
It's
a common motif that Robert Eggers was pulling from and really talking about.
yeah, it was just so interesting, and something that I read was this cool like interview on Variety with the makeup artist, whose name escapes me, and I'm very sorry. Um, but they were going back and forth trying to figure out what they wanted that final corpse version of Count Orlok to look like. And they took their final inspiration from a reference photo of a rediscovered body of a 5,300-year-old ice man found in the Alps. And I just looked it up and found the image. So I'm going to send it to you guys, and I'll link it obviously in the references. But I thought it was really interesting because they fucking knocked that shit out of the park. Looks exactly like it. And I am obsessed with mummies. So, and natural mummies and bog mummies and all that shit. So
And all the
I love.
Victorians that ate mummies, which is why we don't have that many mummies
Yes.
nowadays. It's so
That
fascinating.
shit is so crazy.
Why
You
people
told me about
love
that.
cannibalism.
It's so weird. Oh, I just read a book that had some cannibalism things in it. I'm thinking about it all the time. But yeah, I love like this fucking niche ass fucking reference photo that they found. I mean, it was a big deal when they found this Iceman, so whatever. But they nailed it, and his emaciated corpse, the blood coming out of his eyes like glossing over. Well, when I also was reading, I watched a video with the costume designer, and they were like the day look and the night look for Nosferatu, which I thought was fucking hilarious that he had a day look. Take your outfit from day to night, ladies.
Exactly.
Nosferatu does. But like they were talking about like his sclera lenses that he had to wear for the night look, which is like how he looks more like a corpse when he's like in his sleep phase too, like when Thomas like opens the casket. The casket, by the way, is based off of ancient Polish caskets. Shout out to Poland. And yeah, like he looks more like a corpse than, at least to me he did, with those eyes and stuff. Um but like having his eyes switch to that immediately, and the blood, the vomit of blood. God, we do be vomiting blood a lot in this movie. Hard to
Everybody
watch
likes
when
to
you're
vomit
hungover.
blood.
The
I
guy
say
on
it
the
as
ship
I've
really
been
just rockets
puking
it.
up my guts all day, but with not blood.
Thank God.
Bodily
If it was
That's why I
blood,
fluids.
had
we
to.
shouldn't be
You
recording
know.
right now, girl. You should be at the hospital.
That's why I had to run away earlier. I was like,
Yeah,
oh
I was
no,
like, she's coughing up blood for sure.
I'm absolutely over the
So
She's in
toilet.
there
sorry.
hawking lubes.
I was. It
But
was
your voice
bad.
sounds so sexy like this.
Bounce on it, crazy
Crazy
style.
style.
Crazy style.
Oh my God. That ending. It was just, and Thomas being so sad and closing her eyes and her still being alive for that last little second.
They were together again.
Yeah.
Something that I think I said to you in the theater that I don't think I've said yet, just as just a fun detail that I really like, is in the beginning when she calls to him and you see his shadow in the curtain and the curtain billowing. It really is giving
Yes.
the ending of Suspiria too, which is again like the glimpse of power, the shadow of something that is it there, is it not there?
Yeah.
How much can it be interacted with? The living
Ooh.
corpse aspect of the themes and blah blah blah. I don't know, just
Damn. Oh, okay. Well, are we ready to move on to our segments?
Or segmentos.
that one I'll give a thumbs up.
Yeah, I like that. That was
Wow,
really
and
good.
Chelsea approved.
Thumbs up for that one.
Okay, so we have to ask the age-old question: how could this movie be gayer? And I would say that we've got some bisexual icons in here already, baby. They're obviously, and some polyamory going on too. But I think that unfortunately, Ellen is Count Orlok's primary partner. And so Thomas is getting a little neglected here, but maybe he's okay with it. It's just a very confusing
He's
situation.
okay with
They
being
just
neglected
need to
by
be a
Orlok.
throuple.
They'll work on their relationship. You know what I mean? They're like a little
Mhm.
behind, but also they did meet in person first, so even the stakes a little.
True. True.
I
And
do
just,
think
it's new territory for all of them.
yeah. I think Anna and Ellen could have been a little gayer with each other and perhaps even should have been a little gayer for each other, but she's also already juggling a lot, you know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
think it can be just like homoerotic. We have this like very clear, and I think that is kind of also there already, this very clear love for each other, but given the times, it has to exist in this one specific
Yeah.
context rather than what it might have been in another time, another universe.
The
But I think
energy
they
was
really
there
do
for sure, though.
clearly, yeah, they clearly love each other so much. And I think it's fun that both of those performers are in the queer community.
And the way that they, like, slept together, like when she first wakes up into her nightmare or whatever, they're kind of like not holding each other, but like wrapped together. I just found the
They're
way that their
like
bodies
curled
were
in
placed with
towards each
theirs.
other at
Yeah,
least.
it was very, very sweet. So there's obviously an
This beautiful
intimacy there.
intimacy.
Yeah, totally. I loved that. I loved that. Emma Corrin is so cool.
Mm, that's my Princess
Other
Diana.
Any other gay thoughts?
So many more gay thoughts. Yeah, she played Princess,
The
or they
younger
played
version.
Princess Diana in The Crown.
Oh,
Before Elizabeth
cool.
Debicki stepped on
Mhm.
scene for the like 10 years later Diana.
Chelsea, was Emma Corrin the actor in Murder at the
Murder
End
at
of
the
the
End of the
World?
World. Yeah.
I never fucking finished that.
So cute in that.
Oh, I need to finish it. I really liked it too. I don't know why I fell off.
With the
Well, I
baby
need a new
bangs
show.
too. I thought they were really working the
Yeah.
brunette hair and the baby. I mean, I liked the like short pink hair also, but it was a very different
Yeah.
vibe.
Love a baby bang moment.
I do. I love
Okay.
a baby bang.
That brings us to Matthew Lillard. Where would Matthew Lillard go in this film? And I want to start off by saying, don't worry, we heard the Scream 7 news. And we
Yeah, don't worry.
just want to bring that up really quickly.
We're hip to that
I'm
job.
overwhelmed and I need processing time. But yeah, so glad he's getting these big roles that he deserves. What a wonderful birthday present for him. But in this film,
Mhm.
he would have been a good person to be Ralph Ineson's character, but
Yep.
again, that's my baby boy
Mm.
as well, and he needs to be in every Robert Eggers movie actually. So
He could be Air Canuck. Get a little freak on.
I
could
kind
go
of don't
freaky.
want to take anyone's roles away from them. I kind of want to create a new role for Matthew Lillard in
fair,
this
because
movie.
the
No,
the
I know who
performances
he
are
could be.
who
He could be one of the sailors on the ship.
I can see that. Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah.
he could be the
Yeah.
captain of the ship who's like,
the one that
lock
tries
everything
to kill.
down. Yeah.
Yeah,
He could
the
have
one that
been the
tries to kill
sleeping
Nosferatu.
vampire in the little town that
Yes.
Thomas sees get stabbed.
Yeah, I think that would be really good. Also, hear me out. He could have been the naked virgin on the horse.
I think he would do a great job at that. I think he can play whatever role he wants to.
Sorry, Matthew Lillard. That was disrespectful of me.
Respectfully,
No,
he
it's
could have been the virgin
art.
on.
Respectfully, you should have gotten naked and gotten on a horse.
I've never seen Matthew Lillard in like a true period piece. I don't think. I don't know if that is like part of his like his body of work. But I wonder
Yeah.
how well he would, you know how some people they're like they've got iPhone face or whatever. Not that he has iPhone face, but he is so modern to me that I wonder, I would love to like see him in that role and see if I am open to him blending into the background, or if I will always just be like, that's Matthew Lillard.
Yeah, I wonder. I don't know.
I mean,
I'm
some Nosferatu style costuming and makeup, you know, that'll do. Not Nosferatu the character, the movie. Once you've got him in all of the garb, you know what I mean, and not doing his like regular style, I think, you know, that would go a long way.
He's got to
but
go crazy style.
Yeah, yeah.
maybe he plays Ellen's dad and we just didn't see him.
Oh, he was actually in the film.
He was actually in the film. Yeah.
Yeah, they cut his scene, unfortunately, which is pretty.
He was about to run over in that opening scene when we see her out on the grass. He was running
He
through
was
those
there.
hedges just out of sight.
He was running
I
up
don't
that
see
hill.
any period pieces on his stuff that I can tell, at least from the name of the picture on his IMDb.
I mean, like
anyway.
SLC Punk, I think is like takes place in the. Actually, no, it might have been a modern film at its time. I don't know.
It's modern. I don't know. Well, he could believably be someone from the 70s because Shaggy is kind of that, so we know he could do it.
We know he can disappear
anyway.
into a role. Yeah.
Yep.
So, are we ready to move on to Dumb Bitch?
I'm not ready in that I don't have any good nominations, but I am ready to discuss. My only thought is like Herr Canuck, maybe, because like he's doing that same kind of thing again, where he's like assuming that he's going to be rewarded for his service, and it's like, did anybody ever even tell you that, or are you jumping to conclusions?
It's Friedrich, unfortunately, because he doesn't want to believe in what's right in front of him.
Yeah.
He's a man of science, and everybody
He's a man
knows
of
that if you
science?
don't believe
He's a shipman.
in the supernatural as well as science, dumb bitch.
Yeah, I mean, it's mean. That's so mean because he goes through so much, but he also is like really mean to Ellen.
But he also makes Ellen like literally, she's out here not just like supporting Thomas's weight when he like can't even hold himself up. She's lugging that cat in the carrier.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that was fucked up.
Puts them out on the street.
Mm-hmm.
I'll support that.
Yeah, it's sad, but it's true. That brings us to our knives out of fives. And Chelsea, set the stage. Tell me about how it has a 100% on Rotten Tomatoes and blah, blah, blah.
Well, it doesn't have that.
I
On
know.
IMDb, it has 7.4 out of 10, and on Rotten Tomatoes, it has 85% fresh from critics and 73% fresh from audiences. Um, but as discussed, I think this is a movie that really benefits from a rewatch, and it just hasn't been out that long. So, like, it only
Yeah.
very recently became available on video on demand at home or whatever. So I don't know if those numbers are going to change over time, but I wouldn't be surprised if they did, because I really think, as accessible as it is, there are still a lot of obstacles that can make it hard to process everything in the movie, purely just based on the fact that there's literally so much going
Yeah.
on.
And it's a
Um,
slow burn too, which people like sometimes that's a turn off for people, but there's so much in
it's
every moment.
long, yeah,
It's long. There's a lot of
but
barriers to entry, but it's worth it.
But yeah, I mean, from an awards perspective, it's doing really well. Like Monica said, this is Oscar nominated. It's nominated for 4 Oscars: Best Achievement in Makeup and Hairstyling, Best Achievement in Cinematography, Best Achievement in Production Design, Best Achievement in Costume Design. It's also nominated for 5 BAFTAs for
Oh
cinematography,
wow.
costume design, makeup and hair, original score, and best production design. It didn't necessarily get um recognition for like writing, directing, acting at
Yeah.
those 2 big awards, but it really went through like a bazillion different festival circuits. And so if you look on the awards page on IMDb, it does keep going and going and going. And there's like noms in there for Lily Rose Depp and I think Bill Skarsgård and for Robert Eggers as well. So like I didn't want to list everything because it is
No,
a
yeah.
lot.
Well, the
But
production design, I'm really glad that we didn't really touch on that, but he created that whole fucking town. Like they literally created that beautiful cityscape, and it's insane. It's insane. And I mean, I don't know if the castle was the thing. Oh, sorry. Another thing with the setting and stuff, the driveway, that shot of Count Orlok's castle with
the carriage.
the carriage, thank you, couldn't think of that word, going down. Remember when I made that side by side video of the original Dracula movie with Renfield and how it was
Mhm.
like literally the exact same for that part? I swear to God, this one is also like the exact same road or something
Mm.
too. But I didn't have a chance to look it up, but it looked like it was like I've seen this before when I saw it. So anyway, interesting if that was another ode to that original Dracula movie. So anyway, we can keep talking about
It looked
random
really
facts.
similar to Bram Stoker's Dracula with that bit also though. So
Yeah, I just that's just the way it looks. Everyone's
that's just the way it
decided
goes.
that's how it looks. That's how the winding road looks, and you can't change it. Who wants to go first?
I will. I fucking love this movie. Like, The Witch, I was still kind of like, yeah, I like it, but it was like, you know, not my vibe. But I love his other 2 movies a lot. And this movie, and I was like hesitant on if I would like it because I didn't, before I saw this, I hadn't seen The Lighthouse or The Northman. So I'd just seen The Witch. And I was like, okay, well, I love,
We'll see.
I love the story, but I was like, am I gonna like this? Who knows? And I fucking do. And it made me watch his other 2 movies, which I also really fucking liked, which now makes me want to go back and
And give the witch another
really
chance.
pay attention to The Witch more and see how I feel about it. And
Yes.
but that's the thing, like I like movies that let me like sit with it and all this kind of stuff. And also this movie is for the fucking freaks.
Facts.
This movie is for the freaks. It embraces the freaks. It says, one man might not like you as a freak, but other men are going to love you as a little fucking freak. Like, fuck that guy who doesn't like you as a little fucking freak. These 3 other men love you as a little fucking freak. And those other men are Bill Skarsgård, Willem Dafoe, and Nicholas Hoult. And that's all that matters.
Might
So,
take
Those
Nicholas
are
Hoult a
some
minute
great
to
fucking
come
guys.
around, but he will.
but he's
He will.
He's
into
ready.
it.
Yeah.
And so I'm giving this a 5 out of 5. knives. I had a really great time with this.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. It's gross. It's everything that I love. And I also love like a Victorian set period piece.
Yeah. God, I mean, I'll just hop in real quick and be like 5 out of 5 as well. Like I said, this guy's my fucking favorite director now. Like, I think he has a beautiful mind and his attention to detail is fucking crazy. And he took a story that was already incredible and like I said verbatim before, like breathe this extra life into it. It's just so interesting. So the conversation we had about like sexuality and intimacy and all that stuff and assault and all of that in this movie was so interesting to me. Like every time I watch it, something else pops up. It really is thought provoking. Look at this interesting conversation that we had that went all over the place. You know, it's a piece of art. It really is, and I'm so glad that the Academy acknowledged it as that. You know, and it didn't get nominated for Best Picture or anything like that. But I don't know. I think that horror is a great way to like a great genre to really like dive into difficult conversations and in a more visceral way than some other genres of movies go. And it is just as valuable as all those other movies too. Yeah, it can be fucking stupid too, but other movies can be stupid as well. Remember Ted? Like, I don't know.
Right. They made a TED
like,
too.
yeah, like
Of all the
it's
movies.
I don't know why that I've never seen it. I literally have never seen it.
Oh, well.
Anyway, I don't know. I don't know. I literally can't tell you why Ted came into my mind right now. But anyway, like it's awesome to see art that resonates with me resonating with the people who are in charge, unfortunately. So I don't know. I love this movie. I love Robert Eggers. What a joy. What a joy to behold. Chelsea?
Yeah, I mean, I think I had something to say 1 second ago, but maybe it's gone.
But then I brought up Ted. I'm sorry.
And then
Go back to before
everything.
Ted. What was
Right before Ted, I was talking about how horror, you can delve
Oh,
into topics that
yeah,
are
that was it.
hard to talk about. What's
I
up?
think it is a really interesting, beautiful thing about horror that by like bringing in these heightened stakes or this like not sense of unrealism. I don't, that's not, I mean, that's communicating what I needed to communicate, but that's not the right way to phrase it.
Mhm.
By bringing it sort of into this other world a lot of the time, you can really meaningfully address these issues and have conversations about it in ways that are just don't can be so personal without really having to be like this is you. You know what I mean? I think it is a way that really opens the door to addressing those things without really having to have it exist so much in our real world. Obviously, a lot of horror can also be like in our real world. Um, but adding these like life or death stakes, I think just allows it almost like an easier entry point a lot of the time.
Totally.
That is very cool. I obviously think horror is great, as do we all. Or you wouldn't be listening to this podcast
Welcome
probably.
to Spooky Tuesday.
Do you guys like horror? Have you ever thought about that before?
Nah, no.
But I mean, like I said, this movie isn't like really my thing specifically necessarily. Um, but the more that I am like engaging with it, the more that I find there is to engage with. I something came up the other day when we were filming Show and Tell, I think, where I was like, "Oh, Monica's gonna have a very different perspective on this movie that I'm gonna have," and I was like a little worried that we might like butt heads a little. And that's part of why I did so much research to be like, what are all the various things that people are thinking about it? Because I kind of had just seen a lot of like Twitter discourse from this one perspective.
Mhm.
But I think it is just once I was like researching it more and once I watched it again this morning, I was very excited to record this episode and to like have
Yeah.
conversations. I just think there's so much there. Again, it's not necessarily something that I would really plan to rewatch, but I think it really benefited from a rewatch. And like with Sydney now being open to like going back and giving The Witch a second chance, it just really is a reminder sometimes that film is so much a reflection of like your experiences, and some days that's just the day that you're watching it. And
Yeah.
this podcast I think is so interesting to me because we record the conversation one time, and then sometimes because of the conversation you're like still thinking about it for days later and your opinion is changing, and like I don't
Yeah.
know, I think
You need to sit with it
um
sometimes.
sometimes you need to sit with it, sometimes you need a second, a third, a fourth watch. um I just think that this is one of those movies that is really going to I think it hit for a lot of people, obviously based on the meme culture, but I think it is going to grow in many ways as well. um I kind of like, I want to give it and I will give it, so don't come at me. I am going to give it a 5 because I think it is like a very well constructed work of art. Like I said, it's not
Mhm.
really like my genre necessarily.
Yeah.
But I don't want to give it any less than that because that would feel almost like disrespectful to the craft of this movie. So
Cool.
I just
Wait, what did you
it's a
think we
5
were
for
gonna
me.
butt heads about? I'm curious.
Um, you were being like, "Oh, she's horny for Orlok," and I was being like, "No, she's not. She's sexual assaulted by Orlok." And then I was like, "Raro, are we gonna?" Am I gonna come in being a
It's
hater, and then Monica's gonna be
unfortunately
so mad at me for?
Los Dos.
It can be both. It can be both. There's room for
It can be
both.
both.
There's
It's
reads for
very
both.
complicated.
Yeah.
There's reasons for both. Yeah.
The
Anyway,
mirroring with like Friedrich and Anna in particular is one of those things where I'm like really like, if that is true love between them and it's like almost the exact same visual, there's kind of like no way to not at least engage with that question and conversation
yeah,
for Orlok and Ellen.
it's really interesting. Oh, what a movie, man. I'm so glad we did this one. What a way to fucking kick off Monster Fucker February.
Monster
My
Fucker
God,
February!
my guys.
And Werewolf versus Vampire
Seasonal
seasonal depression
event.
event.
Wow.
But
The Two
Chelsea, I
Rivers,
feel like
man.
you should be introducing our next film.
Yeah.
Oh wait,
So you
hold on.
know,
Don't do it yet. Don't do it yet. I just want to say also that Robert Eggers is a part of Werewolf versus Vampire seasonal depression event because his next movie that he's going to do is a werewolf movie. Just saying.
yeah.
And this one was a
Robert
vampire
He
movie.
loves
Eggers
our theme.
listens to
He was
Spooky
feeling
Tuesday because he
really
said,
inspired by our
actually,
theme.
this is great.
Yeah.
Werewolf versus
Anyway.
Vampire seasonal
Mhm.
depression
Sorry.
event.
Yeah.
Had to throw that in
Um,
there. Chelsea, you have
no,
the floor.
of course. But you know, we were once I don't even know that we had like finalized the Monster Fucker Feb aspect of this theme yet. We had kind of talked about it a little bit, but hadn't necessarily fully locked in. Um, but we were looking for some werewolf movies that might be good for February, just from like a romance perspective. And I was like, I wonder if there's any lesbian werewolf movies out there. And so I went looking, and we all kind of like we're searching, and we're maybe gonna do some little homework. But I went home and I picked this movie to be my homework to watch, and I watched it, and then I immediately was like, this is giving werewolf. It's giving romance. It's giving seasonal depression. It's giving monster fucker at least a little bit. And I think it's just like a really interesting exploration of some of these themes in a way that I haven't necessarily seen as much with a werewolf movie. So I'm very excited to introduce it to you guys. It's called My Animal. It has a man. It's got just like a lot of different tropes going, and it's giving hockey and ice skater as well. So
Okay, I'm
there's just like
interested.
there's a lot going on.
My
There was something that
romance
we
leads
said.
Okay.
are
Yeah, when you guys were talking
interested.
about wrestling on a different episode recently, I was like, hold your horses, we're gonna get there. But I'm very curious to see what you guys think of this. I thought it was a very interesting watch. It's a little atmospheric, so it might be kind of slow, but keep an open mind and an
I
open
love
heart.
slow.
And I want to hear what bubbles to the surface for you.
Yeah. So it's Amandla. What's
Stenberg.
their last name? Stenberg? Yeah.
Yeah.
I love them. So I'm excited. I'm excited. It's gonna be cool. It's gonna be cool. we're reaching into the indie darlings. We're pulling it up and we're saying, watch this movie, because I never had heard of it before, and it came out in
I'd never heard of
2023.
it.
So that's when I had my
Mhm.
fucking finger on the. I think that was the year that I was trying to see like every single horror movie that came out as it came out, and I didn't even hear about it. So it's
I
an
have
indie
no idea if
darling.
it was even like a theatrical release at all, or if it was like
Yeah,
a straight to
I
streaming
was wondering,
somewhere.
I
But
feel like it must have been, but I'm excited. It'll be fun,
yeah,
and we'll keep diving into werewolves and monster fuckers. And I'm excited for a serious werewolf movie too, because I feel like werewolf movies, at least what I've been seeing so far, like they don't get the like Nosferatu treatment the same way. They're like a lot of the times they're kind of bad. Like I don't know, like people can't like do werewolf seriously that well all the time. But I
I
haven't
think
seen
this
every
is an
single one yet.
interesting take on the werewolf aspect of the. I'll be so curious to see what you think of it.
Okay, cool. I'm excited. It'll be fun. But anyway, I think that we just had a very stimulating and intellectual conversation.
You're
And
so
what if
smart and
you wrote
perfect.
in a 5-star review for us? Wow, you guys are so smart. Sometimes you're three beautiful geniuses, not three beautiful idiots.
Oh my
And that could
God,
be
stop,
a
you guys.
really good thing to write in a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, or just a little 5-star rating on Spotify. We would love to see that. You should also follow us on social media. We will be posting freak nasty pictures of Nosferatu's dick. So find us. I'm so sorry.
We might.
Find,
I mean, probably
Especially
not, because
on
I think
Twitter.
Instagram
Might.
would get it taken down, but we might.
We got Twitter,
don't know.
baby. Let's dick on Twitter.
You won't find out unless you're following us at spooky_Tuesday. That's where we're at for pretty much everything except for Facebook and Tumblr, where we're at Spooky Tuesday Pod. Also, check out our beautiful website at www.spookytuesdaypod.com. And also follow us on YouTube. We've got two beautiful Ellen Hutters here today.
Beginning of
And
the movie and end of the movie.
I could also be the beginning of the movie.
That's
Her
true.
too. She's always in that nightgown, girl.
She
And then
is.
we have
You're
I'm the
the really
lilac.
beginning, and then I'm like the second beginning.
Yeah,
we
and
have
y'all
the
are just
lilac
holding me.
herself.
I know. I just have
We
just
have
two little
the flower,
sprigs, but
the beautiful, and it's a lovely color on Sydney, by the way, in case you wanted
And
to know.
also, I'm obsessed with Victorian flower meanings as well. So
oh,
look up the meaning of lilacs, bitches.
what's it mean?
What's it mean?
Oh, it has multiple different meanings. One, it's like
This
a
is why you
symbol of
listen to the end. You get flower facts. Go.
it's a
Sorry.
symbol of like first love. And it's also like a
Oh.
flower that widows used to use like when their husbands passed. And then it can also be used as a like flower for protection, exorcism, and purification of evil.
Oh wow!
That feels
God
super
damn
relevant. You
it.
should have said that earlier.
Yeah.
That's so relevant. Well, that's why you listen to the end,
And
because
it's
there's really
also
good stuff
That's
here.
why you
It's
have to
not
listen to
just
the
me
end.
running my mouth.
in the perfume.
Oh yeah,
It
she's
smells
got the
like
perfume,
wet
y'all.
cement and lilacs.
Gorgeous. Petrichor and lilacs.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
So you'll only be able to see all that happen on YouTube, by the way. So subscribe.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, I have to say thank you so much for listening, and we will see you next Tuesday.
Bye, spookies. Crazy style.
Crazy
Gotta
style.
bounce on it. You gotta bounce on it.
Bounce on it.
Dear God.
Spooky Tuesday was created by Monica Haidt, Sydney Thompson, and Chelsea Duff, and edited by Sydney Thompson. Our gorgeously spooky tunes are all thanks to Tamara Simons, who you can follow on Instagram at Great18. That's GR818_. And our podcast art is by Ryan Brom, who you can follow on Instagram at Ryan Brom Art. That's RyanBrommArt. Learn more about Spooky Tuesday at spookytuesdaypod.com and subscribe to our Patreon at patreon.com/spooky_Tuesday.